It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. We have a great panel, again, all in studio. Megan Morrone, Hurrah, McCracken, and Alex Wilhelm will talk about, of course, WWDC and who needs a $1,000 monitor stand. We'll talk about iTunes. Finally, it's gone. And 3D Touch. Also, finally, it's gone. Plus Amazon drones coming soon to a backyard near you. It's all coming up next on Twit.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Twit, This Week in Tech, episode 722, recorded Sunday, June 9th, 2019. Poultry Carceral states. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Atlassian. Atlassian software powers the full spectrum of collaboration between IT teams and the rest of your organization. Visit Atlassian.com/IT to see what IT can be by giving their products a try for free. And by Capterra. Find the right tools to make an informed software decision for your business. Capterra is software selection simplified. Visit Capterra's free website at capterra.com/twit. And by WordPress. Turn your dreams into reality and launch your website at wordpress.com. Get 15% off any new plan at wordpress.com/twit. And by Stamps.com. Buy and print real U.S. postage the instant you need it right from your desk. For our special offer, go to Stamps.com, click Get Started, and enter TWIT. It's time for TWIT This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news. Is this the third week in a row we've had a full in-studio panel? I love it when a plan comes together. Hurrah McCracken is here, the technologizer, fastcompany.com. Always a pleasure to have Harry in studio. Thank you, sir.
Good to be here.
And look who the cat drug in.
He's talking to me or you. I'm like, should I be offended or should I laugh along?
That was really funny. I love that.
It must be Alex.
It must be Alex Wilhelm, editor-in-chief of Crunchbase News, at Alex on the Twitter.
Yes.
Hello, Alex. Haven't seen you in ages. You look fantastic. You look amazing.
I haven't been on like 6 months and my hairline's gone back another ½ inch. So give me like 2 more years and I'll just be completely...
But you also look fit as a fiddle.
I worked out just for this show last night. That's not a lie. I did that.
Yeah.
That's
told me you did 100 push-ups.
And some other stuff last night, yeah. I was like, I'm going to be on camera for 2 hours. I might as well try.
If I did 100 push-ups, it would be my last stuff that I ever did. Megan Morrone is also here. I'm thrilled to have Megan in, of course, our co-host at iOS Today and Tech News Weekly and longtime Twitter. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sorry, I can't say that. A longtime Twit.tv participant. Mm-hmm. So who's buying a Mac Pro?
Wrong question. Whose boss is buying them a Mac Pro?
Yeah.
No hands go up.
No.
No hands go up.
What movie
John's
am I
hands
going to see
went
where
up.
someone used a Mac Pro to make that movie?
I talked today to a longtime 40-year film editor. Actually, 30 years. He's been doing it since his 30s and his 60s. He was driving to Vegas. He says, I don't need the new Mac Pro. I'm actually making my new documentary on an iPhone. But there are people who need a new Mac Pro. I have to say, thank you, Apple. Maybe a little too literally took us seriously when we said we wanted the cheese grater back. I was amazed on Twitter at the number of people who said it actually looks like a cheese grater.
Looks even more like a cheese grater than the old cheese grater.
The old cheese grater. But Apple did, I would say the biggest takeaway for me from WWDC on Tuesday, the keynote, or on Monday, I should say, the biggest takeaway for me was Apple has listened, and listened in a lot of ways, right? But the Mac Pro is the first one. This was the Mac Pro they should have done in 2013 when they did that trash can.
Which went into the trash can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No one liked it. But I think this is going to be super popular.
Well, not only did no one like it, Apple admitted in 2017 that it was misdesigned, that because of thermal issues, they couldn't actually make it any better. They couldn't upgrade it. They hadn't upgraded it for 6 years. They said, we're going to have a new Mac Pro. We're working on it now. But it's going to be, they didn't say how long, but they said it's not going to be next year. And they were right. It wasn't. It was 2019. It'll be out in September. It starts at $6,000, but that's modestly equipped. Like really, like a 256 gig hard drive. No one knows how much it will cost, but it will be upgradable to 1.5 terabytes of RAM. One of the tech blogs said, depending on what they put in there, that could be as much as $20,000. The 28-core Intel W processor sells for around $10,000.
Just for the processor.
Just for the processor. I'm thinking if you put all 28 cores, and nobody's going to put it in a terabyte.
There's like the afterburner graphics option.
Which gives you not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Radeon graphics cards, Vega Pro cards. Then there's a lot of optional stuff. There's this Fabric Connect interleave thing that I don't. There's part of the. I think part of the reason Apple did what they did is because you can't really say, okay, well, how much would a PC cost? Because you can't get any of these. Promise makes the hard drive module. NVIDIA makes, or not NVIDIA, Radeon, AMD's Radeon makes the GPU module. So maybe eventually they'll offer these for PCs, but right now you couldn't build a comparable PC. So there's no way to comp the price.
They did claim that the base unit compares with PCs that are even more expensive.
That's probably true though, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much as it's an expensive Mac, it's that it's aiming at the super high-end part of the market.
That's why the price point isn't a huge point of contention. Like, if you're going to spend $6 to $10K on a computer, you're buying the one you want. You're not going like, wow, this one's $50 cheaper, I must go with a PC. Like, you're buying the machine you demand for your job.
Yeah.
I think there are people who would like a Mac that expandable.
Oh, yeah.
But not at that level, kind of down several notches. And those people will be disappointed. But it seems like the people who actually Apple is trying to target with this, they did a good job of doing it. It's just it's not all that many people.
It's like 8 people.
And they have a lot of money to throw at stuff because the faster they can render animation or whatever, the more money they can make.
So it's for studios.
Yeah, and in most cases, clients will pay for the hardware anyway. I mean, that's, in a way, somebody who's going to charge back the hardware to the client wants it to be expensive because they can add their 10% and make more money. So I don't think the price is an object at all. And I do think Apple, when Apple did their apology tour, one of the things they said is we have gone out and actually hired professional video editors, music creators, people who use Mac Pros. We brought them in-house to help us design this. And I think that's pretty clear. That's what they got. They got it. If you said to the designers, money, price is no object, make the best modular Macintosh you could make, this is probably what you'd get, something like this.
It reminds me a little bit of the McLaren Senna, which is the coolest and best car of all time. And it's just built to go around tracks really fast. And if you want that thing, this is the thing for you. And if you want to do high quality, fast video rendering, here's the machine. But here's a problem. I can't afford a McLaren Senna. What I really want is a Mac Mini with a lot of guts. And so I will wait patiently. I'm not mad.
The Mac Mini is much better. In fact, for a lot of people, a Mac Mini would be a good choice. Thunderbolt means you can have external GPUs, external hard drives. So for many people, the Mac Mini or the new iMac Pro, which is $5,000, that might be a better choice. I agree with you, Harry. There is a little bit of a missing piece in the middle, but not much. Used to be you could say, well, what's your budget? This is the Mac you want. And it was a fairly linear graph of price power. There is a little notch there.
There are people who like stuff like internal drives. And I mean, if you're into internal upgrades and you don't have $6,000 plus another $6,000 or another $4,000 for the monitor plus money for the stand, then you might be disappointed.
Okay, one tactical error Apple made. The stand, right? It's fine to announce the stand, to show the stand. It was a mistake to say the price of the stand. And probably what they should have said is the monitor is $5,000 or $6,000 and includes a stand. I understand why they decoupled the stand. A lot of professionals don't use stands. They use Visa arms. There's a Visa mount. They'd spend money on the Visa mount instead. But of course, it was a huge mistake. And you could tell the minute they said it on the stage.
There were groans.
There were groans.
I think a lot of it was, there are all kinds of Windows PCs and workstations that compete for this market. You just never hear about them unless you're a potential customer. And Apple being Apple, this thing got a huge amount of attention by people like us who will never buy this. So stuff that looks ludicrous to us is actually totally sane if you are one of the relatively small number of people who might actually buy one. So.
I think that the general reaction of the pro community is this is exactly what we want.
And the people in the room are developers. And I mean, developers do like powerful computers, but even developers don't need a machine this powerful.
You don't need a Pro Display XDR.
No.
And as Apple pointed out, and they started with this, you know, a really high-end professional accurate video display would be $25,000, $50,000. It'd be expensive. So a $6,000 monitor is not that big a deal.
I have a question about all this stuff.
I got to quote Devendra Hardawar in Engadget, who wrote, "A $999 monitor stand is everything wrong with Apple today. You could pinpoint the exact moment when Apple lost the audience on Monday. John Turnus, the company VP of hardware engineering, revealed the Pro Display will cost $4,999. It's pricey but reasonable considering the features. But then there was one more thing, and not the good kind. 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 5 seconds into the keynote stream, he revealed the stand as a separate $1,000 purchase. The crowd, which was mostly enthusiastic until then, actually, they had huge applause for dark mode in iOS. Yes. Actually, the biggest applause, I think, was the tip calculator in the Apple Watch app. But the audience erupted into cautious murmurs, enough to make Turnus stammer as he continued on. He was unprepared for the Apple faithful to question the glorious technology being bestowed upon them.
It's good writing, but here's my question. So we all agree that this new computer is fantastic, has a market. The monitor is fantastic, has a market. How big is that market? How many people out there actually have?
Well, you said it yourself. How many people have a McLaren? Ford makes
200.
Ford makes a GT for $450,000. They're going to make fewer than 1,000 of them, but they make it. And the point, and I think this is Apple's McLaren or GT.
It's a Halo car equivalent.
It's a Halo car. It's the race car. It's the one you make to show that you can make the best thing possible. And there will be a market, but it may not be more than 1,000 people. It might be a very small market. Doesn't matter.
Because I'm pretty dumb and I have disposable money, and you know they could entice me to overspend on a computer. But like looking at the Mac Pro, I'm going.
They have something for you to overspend on. I overspent on a iMac Pro for $5,000, and by the way, that was the base price. Mm-hmm. And I probably spent a little bit more because I wanted 10 cores, because 10's better than 8.
Obviously.
That
way you can run 15 Chrome tabs instead of 13.
You know, it's totally shameful. Yeah, and that's why you need 1.5 terabytes of RAM. What is terribly shameful is I have that Mac Pro on my desktop. Almost always I will use my MacBook Air, which I mean on paper is probably 100 times slower, and I can't tell the difference. I literally, it's not like I go, oh, this is so slow I have to go use my desktop.
But are you like editing video?
No, I'm not doing anything valuable.
Right, you don't need it.
Rendering the next Pixar movie or whatever.
I mean, I have a question. So I get that a car is something that you just want to have just to show that you have a car, but this is a machine that you could use to make something and make something great.
Right.
So does it put more independent creators at a disadvantage because they can't, like, they don't work for Pixar, or they just are trying to create something and they don't have that power, they can't afford it?
That was my exact response to this editor who said, I mean, the Mac Pro, I can't afford it. I don't need it. I'm going to use my iPhone. I said, this is exactly what I think is most interesting about the age we live in, is that you can create. There's YouTube, which means you can distribute a film worldwide with no money. There's your iPhone, which means you can shoot 4K video, edit it, and distribute it from your phone while you're driving to Las Vegas. We live in a world where it's really, all that really matters is your ability.
But what about like technology, special effects and
so
animation?
You don't do it. You make, you make Roma. Right?
Actually, or it takes a little longer to render, maybe.
Yeah, or you get a cup of coffee while you're rendering that scene.
I think the point is good, but I don't think this is going to give people that are professionals and have bigger budgets such a leap ahead of independence that independence become impossible in the market.
No, because honestly, the only thing that you need that really is a requirement is talent and ability, desire. The technologies, there's a huge range in many price points, and I guarantee you look, Steven Soderbergh's last movie was shot on an iPhone. Mm-hmm. I guarantee you that there are great things being done with cheap technology. We know it. What it really takes is the one thing you can't buy: ability.
Right. Yes. Good story.
So go back to your point. Like, you can drive a less powerful car still very quickly around a track, but if you are also the best and you're the best car, you can set all-time records, and that's Pixar in this analogy.
And I'm the kind of guy who'd buy a McLaren to drive in stop-and-go traffic.
Please tell me you don't have a McLaren.
Not yet. But now that you said it was something.
Well, it's between that and the Mac Pro. I really, I'm weighing my options.
They both generate the same amount of heat, I hear. So it's a very close comparison.
Yeah, they didn't mention what the TDP would be for this 28-core Xeon processor, but I think it's like 400 or 500 watts. They did mention that the power supply would be massive.
1.4 kilowatts or something like that.
1.5 kilowatts. That means your lights dim in your house when you render. You render faster, but you can't see anything.
I like this car technology analogy thing. We should try this more often.
We've tried it. You remember that meme that went around that if cars had improved as fast as technology, do you remember that?
They'd all cost 15 cents.
Yeah,
and the joke is
gas.
we have to turn them off 4 times a day and get out and reboot them. Yeah.
And they would crash on their own twice a day.
That's a 1995. I don't know how Windows works joke.
Exactly. It's an old joke. So I'm just saying, we've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm not responsible for that crazy metaphor. Although I probably repeated it many, many times.
Oh, are you going to buy a Mac Pro, the new one?
No, of course not. Okay. I don't know anybody. I literally don't. The only person, so I asked Alex Lindsay, who, if anybody that we know is going to buy a Mac Pro, be Alex Lindsay. He does professional production. He was on a set somewhere he couldn't talk. I said, I'd love to know what you think. I said, how many are you going to buy? He says, depends on how much money I can get when I mortgage my house. He said, I'll buy as many as I can, but honestly, that's the level of expense we're talking about. It'll probably cost as much as an inexpensive car. Yeah. 20, 30,000.
Yeah, didn't we price it out as like 4 years at a state school?
Or 4 years at a state college.
That's sort of the way I look at money.
You have a choice. You can render faster or go to college. Which would you like? Apple listened about the iPads, too. One of the complaints I had, and I think a lot of people had about the iPad Pro, was that it was a lot of hardware running an operating system meant for a phone in about 2007. And they've actually now, maybe it's just lip service, maybe they're really doing something, but they've separated out the iPadOS. It is not iOS anymore, it's iPadOS. And they've given a lot of desktop features to the iPad Pro. Somebody called, again, the radio show, and said, I just bought a MacBook. I have an iPad Pro 12.9 and a MacBook. Do I need the MacBook anymore? Yes. You say yes. Well, Alex is nodding, which doesn't work that well on a podcast.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
You.
Yes. Harry and I were talking on the way up here. We were driving up. He very nicely drove me up. And he's an iPad fan. And I am actually on the other side of this divide. I'm a laptop.
Yeah, look at Harry's using the iPad 12.9.
I've used iPads as my primary devices since 2011.
You must be thrilled.
It looks just great. I mean, you're right. That when they announced the new hardware last year, the hardware went way past what the software was capable of, to such a degree that I assumed that the good stuff must be coming at WWDC, because it would be so weird to put in a USB-C port and then not let you do anything with it, essentially. So most of the stuff that I hoped would happen did happen last week.
You were right. I mean,
and
that
some stuff I didn't anticipate.
Apparently, all they had to do was flip a switch on that USB-C port, and suddenly you could put a thumb drive in there. You could put a USB hard drive.
If it's a desktop class browser, like they say it is, that's huge news. Because
tell me about that. So you're using an iPad as your day-to-day computer, right? Mm-hmm. And the Safari on there is basically the iPhone version of Safari?
It's pretty much. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that works great, but the more sophisticated a web app is, the more likely it is it won't work well, which in a lot of cases is not a major problem, because some things have great native apps. But there's a lot of stuff that does not have a great native app, like Google G Suite.
We run into that all the time because we use G Suite for our shows.
Google's apps for the iPad range from sort of mediocre to really bad. And I'd be much happier using the web-based versions, which up until now have not worked at all. And if those work really well in Safari on the iPad, it'll make a huge difference.
Only somebody who uses the iPad day in, day out will understand why that makes a big difference. The desktop Safari makes a big difference.
Yeah, because I spent a lot of money on this very powerful large screen tablet, and Google Docs and app version is rudimentary. And if you need to use Google Docs, getting access to the full version is huge.
Microsoft Office is really good on an iPad.
Yes, and there are also web-based versions of the Office apps.
How do those work on
the native Microsoft Office apps are really good.
Yeah.
So I don't particularly want to use the web-based
ones.
ones.
But they'll be better with the Safari desktop.
Airtable, we use Airtable at Fast Company.
Yeah.
The iPad app is not very good. I think I'll be much happier using the web-based version.
There's also little things like the grid of icons which has been so wasteful on the iPad for so many years. You have this big screen, and you still are, there's lots of space in between the icons. They're going to fix that.
And you can put on widgets on the desktop if you want to.
This is something that anybody who's used Android for any length of time understands the value of widgets. It's the main reason I love my Android phone.
Even like scrolling, working on small documents on the iPad is fine, but if you're working on like a 6,000-word document, it's been very sluggish to go through it.
Did they say there'll be improvements?
They have scrolling much more like on a desktop, where the faster you scroll, the faster it'll zip through it.
Nice. And they didn't talk about it. It's hidden in accessibility, but mouse support.
Mouse support, yeah. It's aimed at an accessibility feature for people who have challenges with touching a screen.
And yet so many people said, oh, good, they did it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there are people who want... Do you want a mouse on your iPad?
Not particularly, and I think people who expect this to be just like using a mouse on a Mac might be disappointed, but it also sounds like if Apple implemented this, they've done 80% of the heavy lifting they need to do to offer it as just a standard feature to everybody.
They did, I thought, an interesting thing. The reason I want a mouse is it's stupid, but it's the switching of the mode from typing to touching is enough of a movement of the hand that it slows me down.
I just need a trackpad.
Yeah, trackpad would be nice, and there are a lot of keyboards that have room for, not the Apple keyboard, but the Bridge keyboard, for instance, have room for a trackpad, but no trackpad. But what they did do, which I thought was really interesting, so I interpreted them hiding the mouse as a way of saying, well, we don't want to emphasize the mouse because we really think it's a touch device and it should be touch, and you should use touch, and you should only use mouse if you can't use touch. But then they talked about the fact that there are going to be many, many more keyboard shortcuts in all of the apps. And that is, to me, a great thing because I can keep my hands on the keyboard. That is a strange thing, though, to put in an iPad.
And that's when I lose my attractiveness to it. Like, I mean, to me, if you have mouse support, keyboard shortcuts, and a screen, I have a laptop. And laptops are amazing. They're so good. This laptop that I have is an old MacBook Pro. It is a tank. I've broken the keyboard.
That's why you like it, because it has the old keyboard. It doesn't have that ridiculous touch bar.
It's from 2015.
Yeah,
and I would not trade
that was
it
the
for
last good MacBook.
I would not trade it for a brand new top-of-the-line iPad Pro because I see no advantage and I see actual disadvantages.
Megan, meanwhile, using the 13-inch 2017 or 2018 MacBook Pro.
It
She's got the
fine.
touch bar.
Yeah, I don't ever use it.
Yeah. In fact, the only time I ever use it is to accidentally hit Siri in the middle of typing.
I accidentally hit stuff, too.
But I want to know why Harry prefers the iPad Life, because people that I know and respect do this, and they swear by it. So what am I missing?
You said iPad Life like Thug Life.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you like the iPad
If you
Life?
have to ask, you'll never understand.
On the mean
Alex.
streets of Petaluma. No, but what really sings to you about it?
Sure. Well, basically, because it's a relatively new platform, it has a lot less cruft. Your Mac and Windows PCs have like decades of stuff that's built up. I think when I use a Mac or a Windows PC, a lot of the time I feel like I'm devoting 20% of my time to be like being a mechanic for my own computer. And my Mac is telling me, I have all the disk space I need on my Mac. And despite that, it flashes a message every 5 minutes in the corner telling me I'm running out of disk space and I should do this or that. I feel like a lot of ways windowing was a step backwards for computers. If you have like 17 windows on your desktop and you have to drag them around and some of them are overlapping on others, I like the iPad's approach to it much better, where you can have a couple of apps on screen, and in iOS 13 they're also adding stuff to make that better.
Yeah.
But you don't have windows floating around and overlapping when you don't want. There's just a little bit less of all the stuff that's built up over the years.
It's more
modern.
simpler.
It's more modern.
Okay.
It's better at touch. I mean, I'm aware of things like the Surface, which have touch, and it's just fine. But ultimately, on a Surface, I'm using apps for the most part that were not designed to be touch first. Every iPad app is touch first.
Yeah. Okay.
And it has suffered a little bit with the keyboard in the past because shortcuts and things have not been as predictable. But I think the fact that Apple has slowly made this into a more powerful platform has been helpful because they haven't rushed their way through some of these decisions that are hard to get right.
Like Windows 8, famously.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Yeah.
What a nightmare.
Microsoft, saw the iPad as being really dangerous and very quickly tried to turn Windows into something to compete with it. And in some ways it was cool, but they made lots and lots of mistakes, which even now they are undoing.
Yeah.
What app do you use to write?
I use Scrivener, which is it's my single most essential app. I would not use a computing platform that didn't have Scrivener.
It's interesting because Scrivener is just one of maybe a dozen apps that have similar features there. The Scrivener allows you to keep research notes side by side with what you're writing.
Ulysses is another one that some people swear by.
I've used that. Do you guys run on WordPress or a different CMS?
We're on WordPress, and WordPress about 90% runs fine on an iPad. But they mentioned WordPress during the keynote.
They did. That's another one of those.
That works even better in the new browser.
Yeah. I'm just impressed you don't write in the CMS.
I do. Oh, well, actually, I use Scrivener for my more elaborate projects, where I'm interviewing people and doing transcriptions and pulling up old stories. For a lot of shorter stories for the web, I write right into the CMS.
There you go.
The iPad has gotten better and better for actual work like that. For a long time, it really was just a consumption device, but people like you are the people taking the arrows in the back as you charge over the hill with your iPad.
Yeah, I mean, 5 or 6 years ago, I spent half my time arguing with people who told me that I could not use my iPad to do stuff. And you don't hear that very much anymore.
Honestly, I still feel like it's a little of a stretch. It's a little of a square peg, round hole. You have to really want to do it. Do you not feel that anymore? Do you feel like, no, this is it. This is my flow. I'm working.
I mean, I feel ultimately people are pretty smart. And for the most part, the thing you think is the best device for you probably is.
Yeah.
So if you're skeptical about the
you're right.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to convince you to use an iPad if you don't want to. That's probably a bad sign. And I think over time, more and more people at least have the option of using an iPad. But if there are a million things you love about your Mac or your PC or your Surface Studio, there's no reason to switch.
Use what you like.
Use what you like.
Yeah. It's a personal computer, after all.
I feel like it's generally a bad sign if somebody else thinks they know better than you do what you should be using.
But you don't feel personally, as you use your iPad, that you're compromising, that you're kind of putting up with stuff.
I've discovered little workarounds, some of which I don't think I'll have to use anymore with iOS 13.
There's, to me, a little cognitive load with it. That's, I guess, what I'm saying. There's a little burden.
I feel like there's also a cognitive load with Macs and PCs. I mean, there are certain things I like doing better on a Mac. I have a lot of stuff in Dropbox, and if I'm moving mass quantities of files around in Dropbox, that's still been easier on a Mac or a Windows PC than on an iPad.
You give me hope, because if I can... And I have to say, this is not going to happen until iOS 13. You can do a public beta, next month, Megan? I think what they said next month. In the fall, it'll be out. I think that's the time I might sit back and say, okay, let me give it another shot, seeing if I can work entirely on an iPad. There are some, much needed features. I don't think dark mode is one of them, but we are going to get dark mode. I also have some concerns about the additional gestures, and this is my biggest problem with iOS in general compared to a desktop operating system is the issue of hidden affordances of discoverability. And to remember that a 3-finger swipe is undo and a 3-finger pinch is a cut, and well, I do remember it now. And a 3-finger open is paste, right? Or is it vice versa?
I don't use those finger things.
And even the guy who was trying to demo it on stage couldn't really do it. He said, oops, sorry, whoops, a bunch of times.
I am a little skeptical about those.
I wish but that's what you have to do in a touch interface. You have to overload all the gestures.
The nice thing about old-fashioned interfaces is with menus, at least you can find stuff if you can find it, which is sometimes tough.
Yeah, I can't remember all the Emacs commands, but I know if I have a menu bar, I can at least remind myself, and eventually they become second nature.
Apple's really trained me though to deal a lot more with touch, because I run a Apple mouse and an Apple touchpad outside my keyboard.
So you have that magic trackpad?
Yeah. So I do gestures here and mousing here and typing in the middle, and that's my corporate setup. And I've really gotten accustomed to doing it. I wonder,
even though you're a right-handed person?
I can't mouse.
Are you ambidextrous?
No, I'm dumb.
But you're able to trackpad with your left hand.
Yeah, because it's just little gestures you do to open all your windows at once and kind of bring them back in. And so I wonder if they're just training us to be more, functional with our hands than we otherwise would be. And I wonder if in 5 years this will feel very normal to us, very intuitive. Because if Harry's right, if we all end up using iPads, which could happen, we're going to need to have that level of, I think, gesture control.
I don't think that, by the way. I think a lot of people...
I apologize. He does not think that. I take it back.
I have a question, though. Do you have a MacBook, like a backup?
I have a MacBook, which I keep at home. In a sense, like my MacBook Pro is like my desktop. It's my power machine. But at work, I have the iPad. And for a while, I also had a Chromebook, which I would once in a great while use for stuff I could not figure out how to do on my iPad. And it's been a long time since I've had to resort to the Chromebook.
Yeah,
I like a command line.
I just feel like this is, if you took this away from me, I would probably use the iPad. But since I have this, I always go back to it.
Oh, that's a good point. And some people have said that the iPad isn't an exclusive device. It fills a niche in between a desktop and a laptop. Or a desktop, or maybe a laptop and a phone. Yeah.
For me, there's just no space there. I feel so happy with those
You're
two
happy.
devices.
You got the two things you need.
Again, personal choice,
think
not trying to be negative, but like just
No, but I think you're more, that's more the, I think, more typical response from most people. I'm not going to buy another $1,000 device to fill this gap that doesn't really exist for me.
Well, now that you've called me average, I want to move to an iPad so I stand out. I'm just...
I mean, normal. You're normal, not average.
You people outnumber people who are iPad only. I mean, there's no doubt about it for now. This is not the dominant way of doing things. I mean, when the iPad first came out, there was this brief window where it felt like maybe the PC was doomed. It became clear pretty quickly that was not true.
Remember all the stories you probably run on the post-PC era?
Yeah, I wrote some of them. And clearly the iPad has had a huge amount of influence on the PC.
Yeah.
But
everybody was running scared. PC sales tumbled. That's why Microsoft did Windows 8. We thought we were in a post-PC era, but that didn't turn out to be
the relatively familiar PC still has legs.
Steve Jobs at the time said there's still going to be needs for trucks. You don't get rid of trucks. And so the desktop, which for programmers and people doing heavy-duty rocket ship design, maybe still need some heavy-duty hardware on the desktop. But there's a lot. What's really interesting is how many people who don't need that can move to the iPad. And in fact, that's my biggest question, and I'd like to open it to all of you, is what does this tell us about Apple's future plans? We know a few things. For instance, we know that they want to move away from Intel. At least, well, and maybe that's another question. Maybe they keep using Intel on the Mac Pro side of the equation for really heavy duty. The trucks are still running Intel. But they want to move to I think they want to make all their own chips, and I think they think that the ARM chips they design are good enough to replace all desktop chips, but maybe they're going to keep some Intel. We also know that the iPhone is their #1 product. A lot of their focus on the iPhone, a lot of their revenue from the iPhone, and yet services are becoming important. So that means they'd like to have people in an ecosystem, never to leave. They don't want you to say, well, I'm going to have an iPhone, but I want a Windows computer. They don't want that. They need to be all Apple. And then I've thought for a while maybe they were getting rid of desktop operating systems, that Mac OS would gradually become iOS. I think that the announcements they made this week change a little bit. What do you think, Alex?
Well, they introduced iPadOS. They updated tvOS. There's watchOS. There's iOS.
Yeah, they're making more OSs, not fewer.
I mean, but again, Windows 8 was a problem of Fusion. And so they're trying to go for kind of more of a dashboard strategy.
The right tool for the right job.
Right. Now, the question is, can they maintain that many different platforms at a high level?
Well, almost all of them are still iOS,
right? Well, right. They're iOS with a different wrapper on them. But Harry's point about things being improved on the iPad with iOS 13 or whatever iPadOS thing that's coming up is probably says they can. Watching Apple's keynote, I watched a highlight reel before we came on just to remind myself what happened. I was shocked at the breadth of what they're doing over there.
No kidding.
It's amazing. The range was astounding.
Megan and I did the stream you can get on our Twitch specials on Monday, and that was exactly what we came away with was, wow, they've been busy.
And so if they can keep up that pace of production, probably there's no need for a unified OS, and they're going to keep things distinct. Maybe they'll move the processor barrier from ARM a little bit further up, maybe even the MacBooks.
So you're saying they don't need to?
I think it seems like it's going fine. Everyone seems so happy. I mean, no one left this keynote mad about anything but an overpriced stand they weren't going to buy anyways. It was great for memes. I saw a lot of good cheese grater jokes on Twitter, but fundamentally the updates were good and the iOSs look strong. The OSs look strong.
What do you think, Megan? Because we do a show, iOS Today. We talk a lot about iOS. And my opinion that Apple seems to be, or at least did seem to be ignoring Mac OS.
Well, I think everybody thinks they want a unified OS, but then, I mean, anyone who tried that on Windows really, especially with Windows Phone, like that was it never worked. People didn't like it.
Windows Phone was amazing.
Actually, I agree with you, Alex. Windows Phone, it wasn't that it wasn't good.
We were the only two people who liked them, but everyone else agreed with you, Megan. Sorry.
Okay. But we need a different OS for a different job. And I think people use things differently. Like, for example, I've been using the iPad more and more as just an entertainment device. And like, I have a lot of apps on my phone that I have an addictive personality.
And Apple doesn't mind that because that's services.
Right.
That's income.
And so like, I don't keep Twitter on my phone anymore. I don't keep Instagram on my phone or Facebook on my phone anymore, but they're all on my iPad.
Put it on your iPad.
Yeah. So it's like when I've made that decision, like now I'm going to just.
It's a leisure device.
Yeah. Totally. And I'm sure there are other people like me. I don't think that I'm like everyone else, just like I don't think Harry
No, but I
like
think that's a
else.
common, that's a sensible usage.
Yeah. And if you especially think of people getting older and, my dad has bought Macs his entire life. He's retired now. Is he going to buy another Mac? No, but he's bought an iPad every year.
So it also explains, because Alex is not getting older and he has no leisure. So you don't need an iPad.
I turned 30 really soon, so that joke doesn't quite
Oh, that's so
30.
old.
Okay,
Oh
I didn't
my
used to be this
God.
old. Now I am.
So you're actually a millennial.
Oh, I'm like right in the middle of it.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Sorry.
God, I had no idea.
So do you have an iPad?
You look so much older.
I come onto it really just to get burned by Reno.
Right. First he
It
told
means
you you
that's-
looked amazing.
Yeah, he's like, you look great.
I
Also,
thought he
the
was
ugliest
50.
man
I
I've
thought
ever
you
seen.
look amazing for that. No, I knew how.
I would sound a lot smarter if I
For
was
40,
50.
you look amazing.
Okay, back to the question. The answer is I have a iPad original, and I tinker
Oh
with
God, that's not an iPad.
it. I've had
That's from
zero.
2010.
But you're like a gamer, so the iPad is
Well,
not quite a
I
good
have
fit
gaming
for that.
PCs in my two houses, and I have a MacBook Pro in between, and I have a couple of PS4s.
If you had a
and an
modern iPad, you could play Fortnite on it.
iPhone. But I'm not 14, so why would I do that?
Oh, I
I can
thought
play
you were.
Apex Legends like a man. And if you get that joke, 5 points.
Is Apex Legends more manly?
No, it's also for kids. I'm
Yeah,
just
it's
making fun of myself.
exactly
Yeah,
like
that's what I
Fortnite.
thought. I get
fun,
it.
though.
There was ironic.
Yeah.
I was shooting for irony.
I get it.
Yeah.
What about you, Harry? Where do you think Apple's going? What is Apple's future?
I mean, at WWDC, it felt pretty good. It felt like most of the engines were firing.
Yeah.
It is a little intimidating that they have so many platforms. They're updating on this yearly cadence, and they're all coming out at the same time. And remember, in the old days, iOS and macOS were not coming out at the same time, and they occasionally delayed them, and they were
Right.
not yearly. It's a little intimidating. As happy as I am to think that they'll update iPadOS every year, that's on top of everything else. And I think it's just a challenge to do that.
That was the excuse we gave Apple, was that, they just can't do everything. So they have to change. In fact, I even thought of it as the baleful eye of Mordor, that they would change their focus, and now we're going to do this. Now
There was one year when I think they delayed macOS by a few months because they needed engineers for iOS.
They even said that.
Now, if they did that now, it would be a big deal because we assume that at WWDC there will be new versions of everything.
And there are, and I think the overwhelming impression was they had a million things to show, and there was many more they couldn't even get to. They're, as you said, firing on all cylinders. What happened? Did they suddenly find a bunch of engineers?
Well,
It feels like a big change.
They do have a lot more engineers than they did back in the years when they had trouble walking and chewing gum at the same time.
I remember the remote app was written by one guy. He had gotten reassigned. They didn't update it for years because no one else could apparently write a remote app. Then the guy goes back and fixes it. It was there felt like there was this engineering shortage, and even then Apple was very profitable, had a lot of money, and it was just assumed, well, the problem isn't that Apple can't afford to hire engineers. It's just there aren't that many great engineers in the world, but apparently there are.
And it is true that nothing much happened with Apple TV at this event. And they'd had this other Apple TV event recently. I think people who love Apple TV always feel a little bit like it doesn't get enough love from Apple. And they were able to do the new stuff in about 5 minutes during the keynote.
They spent more time on dark mode than they did on all of Apple TV.
Who here loves Apple TV? I want to dispute that statement because I have two, and I
have two too.
Mediocre-ish. Okay.
I love it.
I also love it.
All right, I found the two people. Why?
Well, I'm not sure if I love it any more than I would love Roku if I was using that.
It's more polished than Roku. Roku is more capable, but
and then like a third the price.
It's a lot less expensive. But I tell you, like, if I in fact have one TV that only has one device, it can't have cable because there's no, and it's the Apple TV because the quality is good. It's the best. It gives you 4K and HDR, even if you didn't buy 4K and HDR. As far as the store goes, it's got all the same stuff any other store has, and because of Disney Anywhere, which is called Movies Anywhere now, I guess. I don't care where I buy stuff because most of it just propagates to all the other stuff. I I don't like the TV app, but I don't make that my default. I think that's a bad. Apple has yet to get that working properly with its recommendations and so forth.
Do you do well with the little remote with the touch bit at the top?
They fixed the remote. Used to be the worst remote ever invented. Now it's only the second worst remote ever invented because they put a little ring around the menu. So the orientation now is always clear.
Okay, maybe I should need to buy a new Apple TV is what I'm hearing.
I think you might want the new
Apple. Do you have
Apple.
the first generation or the second generation?
I don't know. It's black and it sits under my television.
And
Yeah,
is it
I
a
have
silver
that one.
Remote?
I don't know. Probably.
You need the latest one, which is 4K HDR and has the new remote. And you can buy the new remote standalone if you want.
Because the remote is terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
But you can also use the remote app on your phone, which is not terrible.
Word?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a terrible experience, which
I
means you're
don't
watching
think
TV.
so.
You got to. Where's my phone?
I
You
just
gotta pull
realized
it
this
out,
show
launch
is just
the
tech
app.
support for me.
Yeah. Apple tech support, for sure.
I was starting to really think Apple was on the road to damnation, to perdition. That the thing I loved most about Apple, which was Mac OS, was getting ignored. They hadn't updated the Mac Pro since 2013. And there was one more thing, and we're going to pause. There was one more thing Apple did at WWDC, which was listening to everybody I know, and they had been ignoring for years. They did something else. We're going to take a break. I recently learned about dark patterns, and I'm going to start introducing many dark patterns into our programming. So if you would like to know what I'm talking about, you have to listen to this commercial. That's a dark pattern, right?
I'm here for it.
Our show... Alex Wilhelm is here, Crunchbase News. It's so great to see you. You spend half your time in the East Coast.
Yes.
Apparently you met somebody.
Yes.
And are you married yet?
I get married in less than 2 weeks. I was going to not bring that up because I thought you were going to do that.
This is his bachelor party.
This
right
is-
here, you guys.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, we've got a little surprise for you.
No.
You've heard of the Thunder Down Under?
No.
I'm sorry I said the word bachelor party. Can we just rewind? I didn't say it.
We're going down a hill here, and I don't know what's at the bottom of it.
2 weeks.
Less than 2 weeks. 2 Saturdays from now.
Is the wedding here or there?
There. Yeah.
So you just came out for a bit for us, and then you're going right back to Providence, and
I fly out Friday night.
and you're marrying Dr. Liz.
Dr. Liza.
Liza.
Dr. Liz is her mom. Same job, same name.
As somebody who's been married more than once, you also marry the mom. I'm just saying.
The good news is
You get the whole family.
I get along really well with her whole family, and they're all really nice.
No, they're great.
I'm
and
very
I'm
lucky.
so happy for you and Liza. That's so fantastic.
It'll be the first and last time I wear a suit. I'm really excited about it. I bought one for this thing. So.
But shorts, right? Suit and shorts.
No, I'm changing into the shorts right afterwards.
Okay, that's your going away outfit.
By the way, I still remember when I was getting married 19 years ago, and I remember what you said to me. You said, "Where are you getting married?" And I said, "Outside." And you said, "My first wedding was outside."
It lasted 7 years. You've outlasted
19
mine.
years, yeah.
Yeah.
19
so-
is impressive.
Isn't that good?
Good job.
19
Yeah.
years in November.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not over yet.
Yeah, we'll see.
Don't.
Chickens, counting, hatching. There's a whole thing here.
That's Megan Morrone, Tech News Weekly, and of course iOS Today, which will be on Tuesday, and we're going to do another developer.
Yes, Rosemary Orchard. She does automations. She does a podcast with David Sparks.
This will
on
be
Relay
fun.
FM.
Yeah,
So,
that'll be a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Tuesday at 9 a.m. And Harry McCracken, I still call him the Technologizer. You'll always be the Technologizer to me. He's technology editor for Fast Company. And what are you up to these days? You got a podcast? Anything you want to plug? Getting married?
I'm working on several stories I can't tell you about yet, but they'll be exciting when they
Your
come
long
out.
form stuff at Fast Company
Yeah,
is so good.
We have the luxury of working on things that take time sometimes.
I bookmark every one of them. In fact, we'll talk when we come back from the ad, but I'll talk a little bit about your most recent one. Our show today brought to you by Atlassian. We're in Atlassian House, proud to be. Our IT department uses Atlassian to get things done, to collaborate, to communicate. It is really important. I think a lot of people think of Atlassian as for developers, but it's also for IT teams, and it's really important as not just our business, but almost all businesses now are IT focused, whether you're in the cloud, you have technology that you have to support, even if you just have a bunch of computers running spreadsheets, your IT team is what keeps the lights on, keeps the road rolling, and you've got to plan and execute faster than ever. You have to communicate. Incidents often require open, agile, and smart coordination. You need Atlassian. Atlassian, well known for Jira, of course, which is the tool that most agile teams use. We use Jira not as a development team, but as an IT team to keep track of projects, who's doing what stage it's at. It's a very useful tool. We also use Atlassian's Confluence to document what we do. And I think that's the thing I would underscore. It's great to coordinate your efforts to make sure everybody's doing the right thing and is on the right page. It's also equally important to document it. It's equally important to communicate it. And Atlassian makes that easy without leaving the Atlassian platform. If you've got a code base, you've got Bitbucket. If you have pages to monitor or services to monitor, you need Ops Genie status page that helps your team detect incidents better, coordinate response efforts, resolve issues faster, and, again, keep customers or stakeholders up to date. Your team can here's the thing you really need to know. Bottom line, your team can choose tools that are right for your current framework, and knowing that as you grow, Atlassian's tools can grow with you. They've got so many tools to help you in every area of IT and collaboration. And, of course, because Jira and Confluence are the backbone, you never have to leave the platform to get the job done. Like all of Atlassian's products, the tools you need for your IT team are easy and free to try. You go to Atlassian.com/IT to find out which Atlassian offering is right for your team. Atlassian.com/IT. We thank Atlassian for supporting This Week in Tech, and we thank you for supporting us by using that special address, Atlassian.com/IT. So the thing that... What? What are you laughing at?
No, I just love your transitions. They're so smooth. You're really good at this. It's fun to watch.
Yeah, it's like you've been doing it for a while.
I am a learner. I'm
Sorry.
still learning. Someday I hope to have a podcast of my own. The thing that I was so grateful for to Apple, and we heard it in a rumor, I have been saying for years, and the excuse, I guess, was, well, they just don't have enough engineering talent. What the hell, Apple? iTunes sucks. Nobody thinks iTunes is great, right? Finally, Apple puts the nail in the coffin and puts iTunes to bed, or do they? I don't know. Did you go to the event, Harry?
I was there.
Did you get to see what this new thing? Because they're going to have 3 apps. They're going to have music. They're going to have podcasts. They're going to have, what's the third one? I forgot. TV. Tell me they're not just renaming iTunes Music.
No. Well,
did you get to play with it?
I have not played with
it.
Okay. I was flirting with installing the betas. I decided to wait until
that's my deep fear is that they just renamed it.
No, they've broken it up.
They broke it up, and they moved the sync stuff into the operating system,
right,
I think,
which
because it's
makes
now in the menu
sense.
bar, which is because people wondered, well, if I don't have iTunes, how do I back up my iPhone? How do I restore my iPhone? How do I sync? All of that's now OS-based, which is actually a better place for it. That was the problem. They tried to jam too much stuff into one program.
It is kind of weird that, I mean, when was the last time anybody loved iTunes?
It's taken them a decade to finally...
It was years ago. I went back and I looked at the initial response to iTunes, which was rapturous.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it was.
But that's because it was so simple.
Do you recall when Steve Jobs told, I think it was Walt Mossberg on stage, when Walt pointed out that Apple had become one of the biggest Windows developers because iTunes was so big on PCs, and Jobs called it a cool drink of water in hell? And then the joke flipped because iTunes became the thing you wanted to kill more than anything else, no matter what platform you were using. Oh, crap, iTunes opened. You were never happy to see it. It was like the bad friend who steals your stuff.
I've always been a little surprised that so many people use that because I almost never touch it, and it's been a long time.
Every time I plug in my iPhone, my stupid Mac brings it up.
You can turn that off, which I think I've done.
Yeah, now you can sync via Wi-Fi. You don't really have to.
There are all these other tools which are great for everything iTunes does, and even I use iExplorer, which basically lets me look at the file system on my iPhone or my iPad.
I've started using Vox to play music, so I don't have to use it for music.
Yeah, I'm not a Apple Music person even.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, thank you, Apple, for listening. A little late, but finally listening. They're getting rid of iTunes. The other thing I thought was really important, and it's going to be more and more important, is Apple is really now a privacy company. They didn't hesitate with Find My ... and they talked about how Apple's. I didn't know this. Apparently, all Apple laptops have been sending beacons all this time. We didn't even know it, but they're going to be able to send them. And you're going to be able to find your laptop, even if it's off, without disclosing personal location information, even to Apple. Things like that. Apple's putting they're putting their mind behind the promise of privacy, and I think that's a really smart move.
Sign in with Apple.
The sign in with Apple.
Could be kind of transformative.
Yes. I'm already seeing it on apps. Day one, we had the Day One developer on. They've already put that sign in with Apple into their Day One app.
And it works on Android too.
It works everywhere.
Yeah, because
just as sign in with Google, Twitter, and Facebook works everywhere. But this time, instead of giving them information, you're giving it to Apple. In fact, you don't even have to give your email address to the person you're signing in with. Apple obfuscated. Of course, you have to trust Apple because they will see. If you do that, all the emails, from that thing you signed up for will be going through Apple's servers unencrypted. But I think people do trust Apple.
Well, I mean, more than Facebook or Google.
Or Twitter. Or LinkedIn.
I don't put Twitter in the same platform company.
But they have single sign-ons. All of them have single sign-ons.
I mean,
I don't use single sign-ons. I mentioned this on iOS today because I used to use the Facebook single sign-on, and then after I clobbered my Facebook account, I realized I have no way of getting into any of these. So I've realized single sign-ons are actually very dangerous. You really should always sign in with email so that you have access to your account. I've
been trying to avoid them over the last year or two.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because app developers will have to use it.
It says in the guidelines, if you use any of them, Twitter, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, you have to also offer Apple sign-in. And it has to be at the top.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting.
And, when we talked about it on iOS today, I said, I don't want to see privacy become more of a luxury. This isn't, if this isn't offered to people that don't want to buy a $1,000 phone. But it is going to be on Android, so that's good. But it is interesting because Facebook has had a private sign-on thing, or they announced a private sign-on thing, and they never did it because developers didn't want it. And
developers want that information.
Yeah, they want to.
So that's why Apple has to strong-arm them into using the Apple sign-on.
Snap had a single sign-on that the same thing. It's going to be private. No one else is going to, and nobody uses it. But now everyone's going to use it because it's Apple, and it's like you got to trust somebody. Trust the least offensive of all of them.
I know we don't, and this is Sundar Pichai's line at Google I/O, we don't want privacy to become a luxury item. It is, and it will be.
Yeah.
Period. It's going to be. There's nothing you can do about it because if you don't have the cash, you can use free services by trading your attention and your information to those free services. It will take cash. You will have to give money to companies like Apple in order for them not to use surveillance capitalism on you. That's just how it's going to be.
Unless it comes through regulation, unless we have a privacy bill that...
No.
Are you going to tell Google, you got to give away Gmail and you can't monetize it in any way? You're not going to do that. No Congress is ever going to do that.
I don't think luxury is the right word. I would say for a cost. There will be a price attached to it. Luxury implies the McLaren Senna Mac Pro thing we're talking about before.
Or an iPhone.
Or an iPhone. But I think this will be available at a lower price point than I think you're indicating or hinting at.
But real privacy ultimately will be, and I'll tell you why. I'm reading Neil Stephenson's new book. You thought I'd get that in, and you were right. It came out this week. Fall, or Dodge in Hell, really good. But he talks about a near future where, interesting, face recognition is everywhere. You can't go outside without many cameras recording your presence, who you are, what you're doing at all times. I think we're already there in many municipalities where people create anonymous personas. He calls them PURDAs. It's an acronym, PURDAH. And so we all have real identities, but people will be able to create multiple personas that will be encrypted, blockchain encrypted, that they will then put out on the internet because it's so dangerous. And we already know this. Anybody in the public eye knows it's dangerous to put out your real last name or your real address. That's being doxxed, right? That's hazardous in the Twitter age. So they have these identities. And then they wear something called a veil. And they point out that you could wear a veil if you want to avoid face recognition. But what these people are wearing, everybody's wearing some sort of augmented reality glasses, which I think we all agree will be in the next 10, 20, 30 years.
Sure.
But they have specials. They look like sunglasses, so you can't see their eyes, and they have little laser lights underneath them that are beaming algorithmically lights on your face to prevent face recognition from working. But you can also program them to be, in effect, a barcode that's tied to your whatever PURDA you want to project as you walk around. He's in this novel. He's dealing with what he sees as the inevitable consequences of the life we're in right now. And I think he's right with face recognition and all of this. I think he's absolutely right. Social media. He says the internet collapses. In 30 years, it'll collapse because there'll be so much false information on it. Only people who can afford an editor,
a personal editor
to go through it will have real information. those who can't will be inundated with so much false information that you'll pick the affinity that you have, and you'll believe and we're already seeing this, by the way. You'll be in that belief group, and that'll be your group, and nobody can tell you different.
Like the Tucker Carlson Fox News media bubble.
Yeah, Sean Hannity's affinity group. And we're already there. I mean, honestly, we're getting there, and you can see this isn't so far in the future. But the reason I bring all of this up, besides saying it's worth reading, not so much because it's the greatest novel ever written, although I think Stevenson is one of my favorite novelists, but because the ideas in it I think are really challenging and interesting. But what he's essentially saying is those who can afford it can get real information on the internet, can hide their identity, well, at least not hide, but control their identity, control their privacy, but it is not going to be inexpensive. And he said most people don't care. They just go out in the street because they don't care.
Yeah, most people aren't on shows like this. They don't need to have higher levels of protection attached to them. But I think
the time will come that this is the real problem. Anybody can be a target on Twitter.
Yeah, like in a custody case or something, like, just anything.
Yeah. I think the login with Apple hits two things. One, the privacy zeitgeist that we've been talking about a lot, I think probably on this show and in and around the internet for the last couple of years, but also the antitrust wave that we're talking about. Apple is demanding this sort of placement, and I'm curious if that's kind of poorly timed given the changing climate in DC about tech giants and their platform power.
There's new controversy lately over the App Store and Apple having a monopoly on app distribution, and I almost wondered whether they might respond to that a little bit at WWDC. One thing they did not do is let you choose different default apps for iOS. Mm-hmm. It's still tied to Safari and their Mail app.
I think Apple, what they did was double down on the monopoly, but they published an explanation of why our monopoly is good.
They listed a lot of the good third-party apps out there, and it's certainly true for any app Apple has on the offers to people. There are strong alternatives through the App Store.
Yeah, they made a case. They didn't say, oh no, we don't want to be a monopoly, or we're going to do something about being a monopoly. They said, no, we are a monopoly. Essentially, I don't think they said those words, but that's certainly the takeaway. And it's good. You should be glad. And I think they're going to do the same thing with privacy. They're going to, and I think that I think their thinking is this might inoculate them against Congress, against governmental regulation. Go ahead, regulate Facebook, break up Google. We don't care because we're the privacy company. Now, admittedly, this is a whole nother thread in this issue of regulation versus deregulation. So Shoshana Zuboff in her book Surveillance Capitalism says you'll never see, at least our government and most governments, regulating tech too much because they want the information that tech is getting. That's how governments are surveilling us. So there's an unholy alliance between law enforcement, Congress, and these big tech companies. As long as you give us information, we're not going to shut you down.
It's PRISM in the U.S. and it's WeChat in China. WeChat is, looped through.
China is a good example of what the futures could look like here if we're not
careful.
Especially
if you're in the Uyghur portion of the country where
a million Uyghurs, a million Muslims they can recognize them in face recognition, and then they isolate them and put them in concentration camps.
It's literally evil acted out through the power of technology.
Shameful.
It's awful, but it's powered by the stuff that is often innocuous when not used to malicious intent. Facial recognition by itself is not inherently evil. It just is always used in evil ways, it seems. I'm disappointed.
And it is somewhat evil because the models used to train these things. This is going to be a big problem in machine learning in general. The models many of these companies like Amazon and Facebook and others are using are based on white people, so they do a terrible job, a lot of false positives of people of color. There's a lot of, ethical issues with it.
It also makes some pretty good jokes. There was a woman over on BuzzFeed, Katie Nopoulos, I think, and she did Amazon wanted to scan people's bodies in their underwear to get scans of bodies.
Yeah, for measurements. I do it so that they can...
So she went in. And she refused to sign the non-disclosure agreement because she wanted to write a story about this for BuzzFeed. And she just kind of wrote a hilarious story about how Amazon wouldn't get her almost nudes. And so she made a lot of Jeff Bezos jokes. It was fantastic. So, yes, we are all going to die, and there's no privacy, and the world's terrible. But at the very same time, at least we can giggle along the way to hell.
I think you just did a little bit of a faux pas. I just want to point this out. Her screen went dark, and you hit her shift key.
No, actually, I hit her trackpad. I was hoping no one's going to notice that. Sorry, it was just a nervous twitch.
That is very strange. Do you do that to other people?
No, I didn't. I was like, why did I do that?
Wake up.
I instantly felt bad.
I know.
That was really interesting.
It was. Well, you were.
I think this is a new thing that the kids are doing.
Yeah,
millennials.
keep
they
that
do
awake.
that. Do you do that as millennials? Do you do that for other millennials? You make sure their machine never sleeps.
I promise to never do it again.
No, it's good. I know.
You're the wake up guy. Like they have the reply guy on Twitter. You're like the wake up guy who's always like waking up your
I don't want to
computer.
be a wife guy. I don't want to be a reply guy. And if you don't get those jokes, good job. You're not on Twitter too much. Megan and I apparently are on Twitter way too much. But anyways, I apologize.
It's totally fine. Thank you for pointing it out. It's just one of those things that didn't exist 20 years ago.
20 seconds ago.
No, I think you're right. I think this is very modern, and that's why we have millennials on the show.
You just needed it to be.
I think it's very gentlemanly.
You're
personally.
looking at my notes.
It's a gift.
You were looking at my notes. That's it.
I've been creeping on her note stock the entire time, stealing her good bits.
It's like an act of chivalry to me.
Yeah,
I'm going to start doing it to people.
I think so.
Let me know how that. You should go to coffee shops and do that and see how it goes.
Yeah. Walk around
Hashtag
the whole Starbucks like table by table.
hashtag spacebar.
I mean, to be fair, it was the touch. It was the
I just
trackpad.
it's just, you know,
It was a little,
because it drives me nuts when your screen goes dark.
And
Yeah.
now, because I'm so ADD, I have no idea what we were talking about. Oh, yes, I do. I just came
With
back.
jokes about facial recognition. We'll be joking.
But basically,
until,
privacy as a luxury item.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear we're kind of headed to that territory where some people will have privacy, just as some people have technology, and then some people won't.
We're already there. I mean,
We are already
all
there.
of those, like facial, like you pointed out, facial recognition is, it gives false positives. Like, if you have food stamps, you're being tracked more often. Like it starts with the poor, it starts with the marginalized, and then it will come to us. And we've already seen how it's working in situations like that, and it's not good. And if, we have to stand up and do something about it, even if it's not happening right now to us.
What could we do?
Well, you could do what they did in San Francisco. In fact, he was on Triangulation on Friday with Denise Howell. I've forgotten his name. What was his name, Karsten? Do you remember? An activist who got the city of San Francisco to ban face recognition within the city limits.
Yep.
There is a movement afoot to get face recognition off police body cams. I think there's going to be a backlash. But I think ultimately this, and I'll go back to that, is Congress ever going to tell Google, you have to give away Gmail, but you can't charge for it, but with our information?
His name is Brian Hofer.
Brian Hofer, that's right, yeah.
I don't think Congress will ever be sufficiently educated to make effective tech policy at the edges of what's new and what's possible. So I don't think we're going to see them work in the space. I wonder if we're going to have to just slug it out in the market.
I think they're designed, by the way, I think it's and not a bad design by the founders to be that way, to not be quick.
Yeah.
Quick is a dictatorship. Quick to respond to any social movement is a dictatorship, and I think ultimately risky because you can respond too quickly.
I think that Apple being hardcore about privacy has been good.
It's good
even
for Apple.
It's also good for people who don't use Apple products because at Google I/O, Google had a lot of privacy news,
Yeah.
and they're never going to go as far as Apple does, and it won't be the default in a lot of cases. But I do believe that Google and other companies are offering more privacy features than they would if Apple did not exist as this arch rival who was slugging away at them about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think our expectations for privacy have changed. We want more.
We are much more aware of it. Mine have. I used to argue, you don't need privacy.
Right.
Why is everybody so worried about privacy? What's the worst that could happen?
Turns out everything.
I mean, that's a very privileged attitude to have.
Yeah.
And I think we're all learning that anything can happen. Yeah.
And in fact, if you turn on every privacy feature Google has, it's a way, way, way more private experience than if you leave everything on the default.
Is it still usable?
I mean,
Does Maps work?
That's the balance. If the less Google knows about you, the less useful it is in a lot of cases.
I
Because
think it's the
Google's
most-
business is knowing a lot about you in a way that Apple's is not.
The best thing you could ask for is give me the choice. The best thing you could say is, well, tell me what you're collecting, what you do with it, and what I'm going to lose if I turn that off, and let me choose. And I think Google's moving in that direction.
You have that choice. In some cases, it's kind of buried, and they're not tugging at your arm, asking you to make those decisions. They're happy if you don't make them, but they are there in a lot of cases.
But I mean, you compare it to Facebook, where they're actively hiding any choices that you might have, if those choices even exist. And then Apple, I think sometimes people assume Apple's more private than it truly is. We already know if you put a third-party app on your iPhone, you're hackable and followable.
Although they are introducing new features to make it less easy for third-party apps to do stuff with your data you don't want them to do.
But remember, the WhatsApp hack that allowed somebody to call your WhatsApp app on your iPhone and have total command of it. It's not an impervious platform, I guess, is what I'm saying.
And there was a story in the Post that detailed how often third-party apps on the iPhone were reaching out and pinging servers that came out within the last month.
Right. Yeah. Thousands.
So
one of the things Apple offered, and I'm curious to see whether the market picks this up. I noticed that Nest is not one of the cameras that will be taking advantage of Apple's new camera platform, which offers free 10-day recording, not counted against your storage limit, and end-to-end encryption, so that, and as we know, this has been a problem with Ring doorbells and other cameras that people can. People in the Ukraine, in the case of Ring, were able to look at your videos. Nobody could see your videos. They only have 3 companies so far in this group, Anker's Eufy, Logitech, and NetAtmo, and I doubt Nest would ever go along with this, partly because Nest's income comes from the fees that they charge you for recording, but also because you have to wonder how all in would Nest be on end-to-end encryption. I don't know. Maybe Google will be forced to do that.
And, the Apple stuff requires that you have a HomePod or an iPad or an Apple TV.
Yeah.
So the audience is somewhat limited for it.
There are a lot of those devices on the market, but I'm curious to see if Apple can ride this wave for a while and what the new and next features they can build that fit in the privacy model will be. And I'm curious if they're going to make us more attached to them, because I feel very stuck in the Mac iOS world right now, not because I'm making an active choice, but just because of habit. And this could keep me around.
You're in a gated community, though.
Back to the point about privilege. I don't have to be on Facebook. I'm off of Facebook and Instagram now, so I get to have a more private life because I can get away with it, you know. And same thing, I can have nice devices. I feel very privileged, but maybe Apple will keep me around even more with this sort of stuff.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And I think it's certainly a smart move for Apple from a marketing point of view.
It's going to keep me around with the Memoji makeup.
Is that a big thing? Because those look fun.
Yeah.
Smoky eye.
Yeah.
I thought Bitmoji was dumb when Snap bought it, Snapchat, and then it blew up and everyone loved it. So I've stopped mocking stickers and fun little images because apparently I'm way off the mark.
There is...
He grimaces.
I'm trying not to get in trouble with Megan. She's close enough she could hit me. There is kind of a weird sexism in Apple putting 2 female YouTube stars up to talk about the new Memojis.
Were they female?
No, one of them was.
There you go. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, so
now you're in trouble with
one of them was
people.
a guy?
Yeah. A makeup.
Could have fooled me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just be fair. Gender is not immediately obvious in a Memoji.
Yeah.
Nor is gender.
Especially a Memoji wearing a ton of makeup.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good save.
I'm showing my age and prejudices.
Yeah.
Here.
That's
I apologize. You
You're
may
learning.
hit me.
I think we all
They
learned
anticipated
something today.
your concern and addressed it.
No,
Yeah.
I think the intro, the middle bit, and the corrective were all fine there. I thought that was a solid B minus.
Yeah.
Hey, at least I didn't reach out and touch
Exactly.
a
Well, you just
trackpad.
did. So, and if you don't see the video, you're missing out.
I'm allowed. I own that laptop.
It's true. It does belong to him.
I'm excited about the stuff.
Okay. We said everything there is to say about WWDC's and the keynote, and there is from a purely programmer's point of view, this new SwiftUI thing that they announced.
That got the most cheers.
That's a developer conference, but it is going to make it a lot easier for even non-programmers, kids, and people who want to develop Swift apps, iOS apps. Much easier for them to develop apps. It's a much more natural way to design an app right on the screen, drawing it. I think that Apple's done great work there. They've always done great work in Xcode and their interface design, but this is very exciting.
When I was back in high school trying to learn C++, it was me in a dark room trying to make a compiler work.
Right.
This is so much better. And how great to put it in the hands of kids.
Yeah, and adults for that matter. But I imagine, in fact, I don't know, I would think Apple would have always been doing this, because honestly, if you have developers who are developing for your platform and your platform only, that is good for you, right? So I thought that was also very important. And let's not forget that there is a tips calculator now on Apple Watch.
Can we grade this? Can we give like a 9 out of 10? I feel like going through this list of stuff, we've all been pretty darn
amazing.
Positive, which is rare.
You pointed out there was one negative, a $1,000 monitor stand. That was it.
What if they did that on purpose to attract all the negative commentary to one lightning rod, and the rest of it was they knew it was going to be good? They're like, no, make it $1,000. People will lose their minds.
They're playing 3-dimensional chess.
8-dimensional chess.
Yeah, I'm playing 3. They're playing 8.
Yeah, they are.
They're in 2134 already.
Oh my gosh.
I do think that there were a few things that people have noticed, people using the beta that weren't announced. I found interesting. There's the location tracking. So you know how when you're using your iPhone and it says, you know, whatever app has been tracking you, do you want to keep tracking?
Yeah.
And then, but now there will be a screenshot will come up and show exactly
what it knows.
Where they were.
That is
tracking you.
awesome.
The other thing
that is really. That's throwing shade at the apps.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Saying,
yeah.
Well, yeah, but it even showed it for, I think it was like the App Store or something.
Notice how I did that millennial thing. Do you kids still say throwing shade?
No. Not since 2013.
Not since you said it.
Could that be the Leo rule that when he says it on Twitter, it's officially over?
Grandpa's saying it. Stop.
Can you please say "bay" so we can end that one too?
Yeah.
Oh, what else you got?
Oh, the last one was the 3D Touch is going to be gone in iOS.
What?
Is that official?
Yeah, the people who've been using the beta, it's gone, and so it'll be a long press. So the peek and poke or the
hallelujah.
I know. So you can long press to still do it, but then
so the capabilities remain, but you don't have that. You have to push really hard on the.
So it's still a rumor what what the iPhone 11, whether it'll have that capability.
People look at the code.
The code shows no 3D touch features.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's fascinating.
So we'll see. I think the only one left is the flashlight and the camera, which I didn't even know you could 3D touch, which is part of the problem with 3D touch.
Because I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I used 3D touch for.
What does it do?
If you're on the lock screen, you can quickly get into the camera or quickly turn on the flashlight.
Gonna try this out.
Yeah.
All right. Somebody's saying, is this an all Apple show?
Oh, that's amazing. Why would you take this away?
Well, they're not taking that one away.
Oh, okay, good. All right, sorry, Leo. You can do the ad.
I think
this is why Apple is the most valuable company in the history of the world. Do you ever feel like a sheeple?
I own 2 high-end Windows 10 gaming PCs.
That's right. You're a gamer.
No.
Yeah.
I'm not even much of a gamer. I just like to live in both worlds.
Yeah.
Still, after this conversation, or you're not going to go home and throw away your Windows machines?
No. I want a mechanical keyboard, an external monitor. I want it to glow red like Satan's horns. Macs don't do that. PCs do.
No, that's true. Plus, you don't have liquid cooling and big blowers.
I mean, it's got to be an intimidating form factor, you know, not a cheese grater.
Cheese grater.
That's for the yuppies, but they're cappuccinos.
All right, we got more to talk about, including Google's Stadia gaming service, Mr. Gamer. But first, a word from our sponsor, Capterra. Are you in business? Do you use business software? So many companies, for them, business software means something running on a Windows XP machine in the closet. They still need IE8. It's the only way they can do it. There is better software for every business, modern software you can use a modern computer with, software that works right, is easy to use, and you can find it at Capterra. Look, finding the right software for business can be kind of complicated. What do? You Google it, then you're going to get a list of 1,000 programs, no additional information. It's going to be all crazy. Is this one good? I don't even know. Or, you can call a friend, but what do they know? Capterra has all the software, 700 categories in every possible area of business. The big ones like CRM or IT project management, e-commerce, link management tools, web conferencing, but also individuals, things like yoga studio management or dental office management, every possible program. And these are all brand new, modern, excellent software. And you don't have to take my word for it. You could do the search, narrow it down by rating, by capabilities, the number of seats. Is it run on the cloud or is it run on a hard drive? That kind of thing. Even compare them side by side, 4 at a time. And then the best thing, reviews. Almost 1 million reviews from actual users. So you're going to see exactly what that program can and cannot do, how people like it. This is the tool you've been needing all this time. Stop suffering with old, out-of-date, dangerous business software. Get something new for your business, no matter what kind of software your business needs. Capterra makes it easy to discover the right solution fast. And once you find that perfect software, pay it forward. Leave a review, because I'll tell you why. Capterra is free. Absolutely free. So leave a review. That's your way of paying it back. Yeah, it is an amazing deal. Free. It's the directory of everything. And it's what you need at Capterra.com/twit. Millions of people use Capterra to find the right tools for their business. Capterra is CAPTERRA. Capterra.com/twit. Capterra is software selection simplified. It's a brilliant idea. Thank you, Capterra, for supporting Twit. And thank you for using capterra.com/twit. So E3 is this week.
It's going on right now as we speak, I believe.
The Sony... oh, no, Sony's not there.
It's the Xbox thing. Brad Sams from Throbbs.
Xbox. There's going to be a nice purple Xbox, the Fortnite Xbox.
Something about Keanu Reeves.
Always.
Is Keanu Reeves there?
Keanu Reeves is going to be in Cyberpunk 2077, the best game the most anticipated game possibly at E3.
It doesn't sound like an A-list title, to be honest.
It's made by the people who made The Witcher 3.
Oh, that's good.
One of the best games of this generation.
And
can we just get Carson on the show?
Yeah.
Carson's pretty amazing. One of the best games.
Should we just switch places? You
of
come
this
sit here.
generation?
I'll do the cameras.
Keanu Reeves
we're doing a big E3 show next week, so we'll have some people who know what they're talking about.
Yes, that's right. So we'll after E3. So this is a little teaser of what was it? Cyberpunk 2077.
Yes.
Kind of looks like a little Blade Runner-y here.
Yes.
But watch for the guy getting out of the car, because he might be somebody you recognize.
No, it's not that.
No?
He's at the very end of this.
He's at the end?
He's at the end of
He's the hero.
No, he's the guy that the hero works for or something like that.
Oh, you're kidding. He's not even. You don't even get to be Keanu?
No, I think I couldn't tell exactly from the voice, but I think you might be what's his face from Breaking Bad.
Excuse me, but all these games look
bad.
You think that's Aaron Paul?
I think that
Does he say yo a lot?
It sounded like the voice of Aaron Paul, but I'm not.
Oh, I think you're right. No, wait a minute. I think Aaron Paul is in this. Let's turn up the sound.
All right, I'll turn up your sound.
Yeah. And I think that's Mr. T, right?
All right, start her up, Bug. Why don't you go to
Let me go back to the kid. So he's going into the
V, my man. You made it. You blowing up all over the news. Are you alone?
I just want the money.
Yeah, that sounds like
you
Aaron
got the
Paul.
chip?
I think that's it.
All right,
There's a lot of
start
bass.
her up, Bug.
So
Why don't you go to the
this is
bathroom, wash up, we gonna be with you in a minute. Oh, come on, man. Your neck, it's a mess.
So, Carson, what makes this the game of a generation? It looks like every other game I've ever seen.
It does, but the developer CD Projekt Red has a phenomenal track record with the Witcher series.
Witcher's good. I like Witcher.
They are very independent, not fallen into the traps of many.
You're saying it's not EA.
Exactly.
There's no loot boxes in
no
this.
loot boxes.
Look at this. Now, actually, the rendering looks good, but it is a cutscene. I mean, it's not. But I want Keanu.
I just can't believe Keanu went from always be my maybe right back to dystopian gunfights. Like, that is artistic range.
He's the king of the Matrix, man. Oh, I missed him.
Coming. No, it's coming.
He's coming. He's at the end.
He's at the very end.
Oh, okay.
We shot the friend.
Okay, here it comes.
Wake the f up.
Okay, bad words.
Sorry.
Bad
I'll beat
words.
that.
Oh, it's Keanu! Does he say, whoa? Whoa. So he's really got a cameo right at the very end there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
All right, I'll play it, and if it's not good, I'll just burn Carson's house down.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sounds
I
good.
like it.
It won't be out. Okay, this is the thing I hate about E3. Take a guess. No, don't show it. Take a guess.
Okay.
You didn't see it, did you?
I didn't see it.
Take a guess. When will this game be out?
It was just announced.
Yeah.
I mean, my heart says January 2020.
April 16th, 2020.
That's
The
almost a
gaming
year
industry
from
kind of moves in slow motion compared
Actually,
to
this
consumer
is a
electronics.
game that was announced in 2013.
Yeah, it's been,
What?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's Duke
been
Nukem
highly
forever,
anticipated.
dude.
This is.
It's Duke Nukem meets Keanu Reeves.
I mean, there's okay. Well,
Were you
anyway,
excited about Stadia? This is so we the other shoe dropped on Stadia. You guys, Jason Howell and Megan, talked about this Thursday morning. You showed the Stadia event. Was it a good event? Was it interesting?
It was not a live event. It was like recorded, and we
please.
just watched it. So
I'm so sorry.
And I guess I wasn't following along closely enough because Jason had to point out at the end of the event that it's not a Netflix for gaming. Like it's not a all you can game. You still have to buy.
That's
the
what's
games.
weird. Well, it wasn't clear when they first announced it because, of course, Microsoft and Sony and others are already doing this kind of streaming gaming thing where you pay a flat fee.
Even Apple is.
Even Apple
Won't
with
talk about
Arcade
Apple
Plus.
anymore.
But Stadia, you buy the game like for $60. Like it's not even.
Yeah.
But it doesn't install on any system. You can, in fact, the Founders Edition is a Chromecast Ultra and 3 months of service, and then this special controller that they're making, which looks like everybody else's controller. And the idea is you don't get a gaming console. They run it on their servers. It is a little weird, though, that you would... So this is $130. You spend $130. All you get is a Chromecast Ultra. You don't get a gaming system and a controller. And then you have to buy games. You do get the first game, Destiny 2, free.
Can I talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
Destiny 2 rocks, and I have spent several hundred hours getting my butt kicked at that game.
But you already played it. It's 2 years old.
Everyone should play it. It's great.
But it's old.
So, but I mean, you don't have to have a gaming system, right? Like that's what is
That's the
confusing
point.
to me because like you already have 2 big rigs that you've been talking about several times.
Yeah, who's going to play this?
Stadia is not aimed at me. I mean,
who is it aimed at?
My colleague Jared Newman did a story where he basically said that gamers don't seem to have a big problem with buying gaming consoles.
No, you can get an Xbox for a couple $100.
And who does that leave, essentially, was his question. Unless Stadia turns out to be something more than existing games available in streaming form.
Well, they released a list, and it looks like, a lot of the big games, NBA 2K, Borderlands 3, Mortal Kombat 11.
They have one
Farming
exclusive.
Simulator 19.
Say again?
Farming Simulator 19. It's not a joke. It's on the list.
Did you say Farming Simulator?
Farming Simulator 19. Sorry, but Harry,
is it the 19th edition of Farming Simulator?
I believe so.
They're also talking about maybe eventually having games that do things consoles can't
Very
do.
big in Germany.
Like what?
They didn't really say.
Mystery features down the road?
Yeah. Well, but
they talked about at the original announcement back at GDC the idea that there's some interesting things. For instance, you could have multiple servers in the Google Cloud running your game. You could have, if you're doing couch gaming, cooperative gaming, I could have my server on my side of the screen. You could have your server running on your side of the screen, so performance might be really good. But what they really didn't address, and they still haven't addressed, is this issue of latency. Because you make this great thing with let's assume it's a great thing with lots of great games at a fair price, and then Comcast gets a hold of it and it controls the whole thing.
Call on me. Last night, I was playing Apex Legends with a friend of mine, and my Comcast internet connection just blipped for a second, and I got
Game
dumped.
over, man. Game over.
I got dropped and dumped. I had to reboot the whole thing. It was a mess. And I pay for a really fast SF Comcast connection, I think the fastest one I can, and it's just not consistent enough to even run a PS4. So I don't want to use this because I don't trust it yet, but I love the idea of it, a way to constantly upgrade the back end, the equivalent of the console, over time to play better games. Fantastic. I love the idea. I just wonder if we have the broadband network needed to power this.
That is kind of the Achilles heel of this whole thing.
And this idea has been around for so long. I mean,
remember On Live?
On Live, yeah. That was like a decade ago, I think, pretty much.
Well, Google had Google Fiber, and they gave that up.
And Gaikai, was that what it was called? Sony
like
bought that for their streaming service.
Google does say that this is way better than what we've seen before.
And if anybody could do that, it'd be Google. Although, let's hope they don't accidentally misconfigure it and bring the whole thing down for a day. Now, this happened last week during Twit. We were talking, Google's down. Well, now we don't know a whole lot more, but Google's explanation is that they had a configuration that they were just going to put on a few servers, and somebody, put it on all the servers, which caused the servers to use less than half their normal amount of bandwidth, and then everybody all piled onto that bandwidth, making it unusably slow. But the worst part of this is it slowed down the Google Cloud, which the engineers needed to use in order to fix it. So they were DDoSed out of their own fix, which is why it went on most of the day. They said it wasn't a hacker, it wasn't a bad guy, it was an oops.
How can that still happen?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't know anything about how networks work, to be totally clear. I know that Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud are things that exist in the world. That's great. I use them implicitly. However, how can you accidentally take down Europe?
People have... So I'm reading the Hacker News thread on this, and people pointed out, Juniper Networks on their big routers, they have a feature just like you do on Windows. You guys on Mac don't need it, but on Windows, when you change the resolution of your monitor, it says, okay, I'm going to change it, but if you don't say okay in 45 seconds, I'm reverting back because maybe you screwed it up and you can't see anything. Juniper Networks, when you make a change to the network configuration, it says, okay, but I'm going to revert in 30 seconds. I'm going to do it again and revert in 2 minutes. And eventually it'll stick. Seems like that might be a little thing you could add, Google.
They need an "Are you sure" button.
Yeah. Are you sure? Are you really sure? Or just like, if that didn't work, revert back. Or just revert back unless you say it's working. I don't know. Maybe they have that.
But it took down like Snapchat and a bunch of other services. Like when this
everybody
goes down,
sits on it.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. It's not just Gmail going down.
So imagine you're in the middle of a hot Fortnite battle. Or I'm sorry, what is
Destiny 2.
Destiny 2 battle.
Apex Legends.
Apex
We're getting
Legends. You're playing PUBG. And
now we're just saying names.
and it goes down. You're dead, dude.
You know what though? I am not young enough to have an ego about my game performance.
You don't care that much. You don't care that much.
I'm just talking to some friends and trying to not think about like Twitter for an hour, and then I'm going to go back and read some analytics for work. You know, it's just a break.
So would you get Stadia, especially as somebody with gaming consoles on different, or gaming PCs on different coasts?
When I thought it was the Netflix for games, I was in. But now that it's just my PS4 somewhere further away down the Comcast pipe, I'm less interested. I'm not saying no. I'm definitely willing to support new things in gaming because I think it's cool. But I'm not going to buy the Founders package or whatever it was called.
By the way, a survey says men don't talk to one another because we don't like to go on the phone unless we're playing games. Where did I see this?
Men are so chatty on games. Let me tell you. They have so many thoughts. Like, dude, my shoe broke, and I don't know. Like, they just go on and on and on. If my friend Holden sees this, he'll know what I'm talking about because I listen to him talk all the time on games. But it's great. You just get to listen to some relaxed banter.
And you know, as an older gentleman of a certain age, I have to report that in my day, when we didn't have PUBG, Fortnite, Destiny 2, and what is it, Apex Legends?
There you go.
We played games like poker or bridge. And you would get together with the guys once a week. You'd play poker, and that was your social life.
I currently host a regular poker game in your old house, Leo. That's still a thing.
Look under the chair.
No,
because there's an extra ace. I taped it to the bottom.
We've changed out the chair since you lived there. But
okay.
I think poker is still really good. I just think also everyone's a lot busier than they used to be. And so it's much harder to have a standing Thursday
You don't have
game.
to go anywhere to play these games. You're playing in your home.
And you can push the time back and forth by 30 minutes really easily.
Yeah, and I know you're not a 14-year-old, but that is exactly what my 14-year-old does as well. Like, he has 5 friends. They play Fortnite together. Like, if I go in at any time, they have the game, and then they have, like, they're also on FaceTime talking with each other. And, and my daughter does the same thing, except without the game. They're just talking to each other.
Yeah.
They don't need
women and girls just don't mind talking to each other. But guys, we don't for some reason. So we have to have an organized activity that we're participating in.
Like watching a football game.
Yeah.
Well, we're not told that we're allowed to just talk about things. We're told that we're supposed to be buttoned up, and games unlock that a little bit. And I think it's healthy. I know gaming's not the healthiest thing for young kids, but I think the conversational element for boys probably is.
Yeah.
I asked my son, Henry, he's 24. He's very social. What do you do? Because he's always with his buddies partying and stuff. What do you talk about? So mostly we make fun of each other. And I think that's probably mostly what you do on Apex Legends, right?
Because I'm terrible. And so I always die in really
It's just a lot of smack talk,
ways.
right? It's just a lot of,
Self-smack. It's like, oh, I'm so terrible. Why do I play?
Oh,
I should delete my own game.
Yeah. You've got the defensive smack.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not good, so.
I only brought that up because I just read, but this is known for years, but I just read a story about, they discovered this. Men don't like to talk on the phone, but they'll talk during games. Somebody just, wow. You didn't know that, huh?
It's okay, you guys. It's okay to talk. It's okay to cry.
I don't know.
Crying gets the sad out of you.
No.
I think all the men at this table are the chatty variety in general.
Yeah.
That's why we're on the chatty show.
I know.
I come on Twit so I can be chatty.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I are more alike.
Then just talk on podcasts.
Yeah, I get home and I'm dead silent. Don't say a word.
As a non-gamer.
Non-gamer. Yeah, what do you have to talk? What do you do, Harry? You don't talk to anybody.
I sit at work not talking to people.
You're just like me.
But your work is talking to people.
Yeah.
You say to, but it's really more talking at people.
True.
Yeah. They don't talk back.
That's why podcasting is so much fun.
It's so great.
It's a one-way direction.
Why am I in radio? Because no one talks back to me.
Yeah.
Right? They just have to sit and listen as I gas on and on and on. This week there was so much great gas. We've made a little movie about it. Would you like to see it?
I'd love to.
Okay. Mr. Throwboy, he's at it again, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. Isn't that
Packaged
cute?
just like an iPhone.
A little iPhone throw pillow.
So there is a headphone jack. But I
Yes, that's because it's the original.
That's the head.
This is the original iPhone.
Windows Weekly.
Did you get to see any of the WWDC events on Monday?
Well, Microsoft actually played a fairly big role in the keynote, and I don't believe was mentioned even once.
All about Android.
It's true.
There is the Motorola Z4. It looks very familiar, but they did pack some impressive updates within it.
Mac Break Weekly.
We've got some sort of weird augmented reality Mac Pro on the table here, replacing the old cheese grater. That looks pretty sweet. I think we maybe have to buy one.
This Week in Computer Hardware.
Tried.
Are the connections to the monitor routed through that stand? Like when you lock the stand in place, is it like doing all the power? So you had $1,000, Johnny, to build the perfect stand, and you blew it.
Apparently, the perfect stand is a whole lot of margin.
Twit. Tell your boss it's job related.
By the way, that's another funny thing about that monitor. It doesn't have an HDMI port.
What does it have?
It has a proprietary connection.
That's just brutal.
That's brutal.
Does it have the Versa mount, or do you have to buy that separate?
No, you have to buy it. It has no mount. If you buy the $6,000 Mac Pro and the $5,000 monitor, you just have, and you don't get the stand, you have to lean the monitor on the Mac Pro, like a savage. It's so sad.
It's so much money for no functionality.
For
it's
zero.
Amazing.
Zippity doo dah. Our show today brought to you by WordPress. That's where I make my home on the net. Everybody should have a home on the net. Now, I'm not talking about your Facebook feed or your Twitter feed, or you fine to have those, but and I say this especially to younger people who might think, oh, I got Snapchat, I don't need a website. You need a website. You need a website. That's the place you put your best stuff. That's your persona on the internet. And the best place to make that website, WordPress.com. First of all, because it's powerful. It's easy. They do the hosting. They do the updates. They've got great site building tools. They've got thousands of themes, and they have incredible support 24/7 from actual WordPress experts. 300 people who live and breathe WordPress. So you're getting support from somebody who really knows their stuff anytime. I love that. And WordPress is free to start. So if you're saying, well, I'm a teenager, I can't afford. No, get that website up. As you grow, of course, WordPress will grow with you. I've grown into the business plan because I have lots of plugins I like to use, lots of themes I like to use. WordPress was started so anyone can publish their ideas, and WordPress.com is the perfect embodiment of the WordPress philosophy. No 2-week trials, no hidden fees. And most importantly, the reason you want this website is because you own your own content, and you own it forever. Upload anything you want, text, pictures, video. Put it on WordPress, and then you can put it on other places. But it's got to live where you own it. You can download it anytime. You're never stuck. WordPress is so powerful, so flexible. Many of the biggest companies on earth use it to build their websites. Fortune.com, Quartz uses it. Millions of people, you use it. Harry just told us, Fast Company uses it. Millions of people use WordPress.com every day to turn their dreams into reality. You should too. I'm on a campaign, a kick, to get young people, especially teenagers in high school, to create websites, because that's where you live, and that's what, for the rest of your life, that's what people are going to find when they Google you. And by the way, it also applies to any business. If you're in business and you don't have a website, you practically don't exist. Go to WordPress.com/twit. You'll get 15% off any new plan purchase. WordPress.com/twit. 15% off your brand new website. I have a huge soft spot for WordPress. Ran my own server for years. Discovered WordPress.com 12 years ago. Said, why am I running my own server? It's cheaper. I'll let them do all the work. And I've been there ever since. It is awesome. LeoLaporte.com is my site. What's yours? WordPress.com/twit. We thank WordPress for supporting Twit. And thank you for supporting us by using that. Let's talk about YouTube a little bit. Earlier I was talking about how great it is that if you have the talent and the interest, you don't need to spend a lot of money to create. And YouTube is absolutely a big part of that. These youngsters don't remember it, Harry, but when we were young and the internet started out, we were excited because it broke down the barriers, the gatekeepers. What are you laughing at?
I'm on the youngster side.
This is the cool kid
That's
part.
the kid table, and this is where the grown-ups live.
Age.
So I'm going to ignore you.
The average age is much lower over here than it is over there. Here it's good, and it's 105.
But YouTube has a dark side, you know? All right, I am on a campaign. To me, the biggest problem with YouTube is the recommendation engine. Mm-hmm. It's what everybody knows. It's what, in fact, there was a New York Times article this Sunday about a kid, 21-year-old, who started watching innocuous videos on YouTube and got sucked down the rabbit hole into right-wing videos. And then, I don't know how, got sucked into the rabbit hole on left-wing videos. But it's the recommendation engine that does all that. Why doesn't YouTube just turn that off?
Because, yeah, exactly.
And they're obsessed with engagement, and not just how many videos you watched, but what percentage of the video you watched.
Isn't that what's wrong with Facebook, Google, Twitter, all of the social media, is they're optimizing for engagement.
Yeah, it's the business model.
But that's what they have to stop doing. Because if you just searched for a video, found it, and watched it, that'd be the end of it. Instead of watching a video on how to cook a steak and then getting directed to a video on vegetarianism and then getting directed the next video on veganism and the next video on is PETA, and the next, by the end of the line, you're doing what they just did down the road in Petaluma, where you're liberating chickens. You're breaking into chicken farms and freeing the chickens.
That sounds good to me.
Free range chickens.
See, you probably watched those videos. That's what happens, though.
The insatiable drive of modern corporations to increase profit, both sequential quarterly and year over year, leads them to immoral and amoral choices.
Yes.
And Google, a company that famously said, "Do no evil," is now more beholden to its shareholders than it is to its principals. And so YouTube will not change. It's Susan Wojcicki, I believe. Mm-hmm. Can't turn this off because it would destroy all of her KPIs, all the metrics that she reports to.
What's a KPI?
Key performance indicator, a metric that you track over time.
Yeah. And is it because they're publicly held that they can't do this?
Oh, they could do it. They just won't. Because then they'd be worth less money. And then they would have less money. And
to be fair to them, I also think YouTube also takes pride in being an open forum, and at least in the past has had the attitude that, yes, freedom of speech does have its costs. You're going to have to be comfortable with stuff you're uncomfortable with being part of the deal. And I think they're slowly getting their head around the notion that might not be the best way to look at what they're doing. And I think that is sincere.
Yes. Stop the recommendation engine. The whole thing goes away. It's no longer a problem. You can post anything you want. You can post anything you want. I don't end up liberating chickens because I haven't gone down the rabbit hole. I'm just watching the videos I search for and find. You can have Google deliver them in the search results. It seems to me if they really cared about this, that maybe that's too simplistic.
I think they are doing some stuff with not...
they're not doing enough.
With not recirculating ugly stuff and making it so it doesn't pop up.
I feel like this is what the real problem is, that Facebook, Google, and these other companies pay lip service to this idea of fixing it, but they're not willing to really fix it. So they have these Band-Aids that, honestly, I don't think they really do.
They also make decisions and then undo them and then make the same mistake again and have to undo it again. And this stuff with this guy, Steven Crowder, where they said that he had not violated, he was doing this homophobic stuff.
Yeah, Louder with Crowder.
Right.
And he's like a shock jock. If you watch him, he doesn't look so different from stuff you might have seen on the radio. But he was dissing a Vox columnist who's gay, and he was calling him a lisper, and he was making fun of his national origins.
Carlos Maza.
It was bullying, which they have banned in their TOS, but they are more concerned about pissing off the conservative media establishment.
Well, but they can make a case. You could make a case. Well, look, it's free speech. It's shock jock.
Well, then don't have a no bullying clause. Leo, you can't have it both ways. You can't say no bullying on YouTube, but that bullying's okay. And
I feel like YouTube, so the real problem is YouTube a platform or a publisher?
Like everything else, it's stuck in between.
It's a little bit of both. And this is, of course, Section 260 of the Internet Decency Act. This is the whole issue, isn't it? If you're a platform, you're not responsible. You can't be held responsible. You're like the phone company. You can't be. Phone company's not responsible for the death threats you make on their phones. You are. But if you're a publisher, like Fast Company, then you're responsible for every word that's written on your website.
The phone company does not curate phone calls.
They don't have to.
If I'm making one phone call, it's not looking for other phone calls I might want to make in the future.
The stupid recommendation engine. I'm telling you, if you could just be that's the thing. If they could say reasonably, we're just a platform.
Yes.
We just put stuff up. Anything you want, we put it up.
Facebook is the same thing. If they took the news feed's algorithm
feed.
out and made it
It's
a
the
time
algorithm.
series thing of stuff that you opted into,
Yes.
they wouldn't have responsibility for it. But they make editorial choices. So
The
they
minute you
editorial
have a
responsibility.
recommendation engine, in my opinion, you are a publisher. And now all of that stuff they're trying to avoid.
Because they want to have it both ways.
You are a publisher who's not paying all of the content creators.
That's right.
Although YouTube, of course, does pay a lot of the content creators.
Well, that's another matter I've been harping on for years, which is, when you're working on YouTube's farm, you're lucky if you get a penny on the dollar,
But they're blaming the algorithm for all of
Right,
this.
so dump the algorithm.
Yeah, and
it's
then
the
it's
algorithm's
just,
fault.
but it was also
But who
a
wrote the algorithm?
Right, and it's a lack of forethought of what could happen. Well, why didn't these people assume like, okay, well, what would happen if people use this in the worst way possible? Then this recommendation algorithm would lead people to be, into this left wing or right wing, releasing chickens or becoming a Nazi, whatever it is. Like, how could they not have imagined that?
So, well, we didn't. I mean, to be fair, when Twitter started, I thought, oh, this is going to be great. Everybody have a voice. Had no idea how horrible it would become.
But
they got rid of InfoWars. They banned Alex Jones, mostly because of pressure, I would guess.
Took a long time for them to do it.
And it took them a long time.
They're banning all neo-Nazis and white supremacists.
Right. But Louder with Crowder, they didn't ban, they demonetized. So he can't make money on it. But, of course, all of these YouTube channels, I believe the bulk of the money they make, it doesn't come from YouTube advertising.
He's selling T-shirts and stuff.
Yeah. It comes from merchandise.
If you want to have
whatever,
if you want to have rules about what you can and cannot say on YouTube, like bullying, which they have rules about, you need to enforce them. If you're not going to enforce them, don't have them. If you're going to make editorial choices, you have editorial responsibilities.
If you're a publisher, be a
Pick
publisher.
a side and stop with this crap of wanting to be in the middle, or just tell me the truth. We want it both ways because we only care about money, and then go after yourself. I'm editing myself gently here for the show.
Now, honestly, if you're completely cynical, isn't that the right point of view to take? Because you're never going to really, maybe you'll pay, what do they pay in Europe? A $5 billion fine, and then you move on. I mean, really, isn't that a pragmatic approach? Is all right, come get us.
The fines are just too low. It should hurt more than that. You shouldn't be able to pre-announce. What happened was they pre-announced a fine in their earnings call of an expectation of what they will get charged. If you can do that, if I can prepay my fine, it's not a fine. It's not even a tap on the wrist. It's just a cost of doing business. Put it in your cogs.
There is a point to be made, though, that you don't want government to decide what's approved, what's not approved on YouTube.
I have no interest in doing that.
Yeah. So you fine them for not what they put on there. What do you fine them
Well,
for?
I don't want to conflate the EU issue and the YouTube thing
the
that
EU
we're
is a
discussing right
competitive
now.
competition issue.
Right, which is, I think...
So what could the U.S. government do reasonably?
I mean,
not much. I mean, I think YouTube says, well, fine. So sue me.
So what you're saying is if they took away the recommendation engine, YouTube would no longer make money? Like they would no longer be...
It would limit view time because the recommendation engine exists and is promoted because it drives, as Harry pointed out...
The same reason Netflix auto-plays every goddamn... Excuse me. Pardon
Gosh darn
video.
Right. It increases the time you spend on the site. I mean, for example, if you read John Doerr's book, Measure What Matters, which goes over OKRs, which is how Google runs its business, there's a story about YouTube in there. And it discusses how they were trying to get to like the billion hours viewed per month mark or something like that. They are hungry for your attention and your time because that's how they can make more money.
In fact, it was the growth engine at Facebook that got them into the most trouble, right?
Yes, it was the growth team.
Growth team.
Yeah. These people are not out for our best interests, but they make a lot of money, and so this is what it works. So you said, how do we end up down this path? Well, because all the signals along the way had dollar signs attached to them. And I just think that they should stop trying to have it both ways. And they have enough money already, and they don't need more. You make enough profit as it is. Just cap it.
Do you agree with Elizabeth Warren and others that we should break them up?
I think Elizabeth Warren is very, very smart, but I don't think there's any political will to do that in the country. No.
It also takes a long time. It's not like it's something that could...
And I'm concerned about unintended consequences.
She has a real extreme take on it.
Yeah. I think it's a little too far.
But I don't disagree with her that maybe Facebook should be forced to divest Instagram and WhatsApp. that maybe Google should be forced to divest YouTube. I was never happy with Google owning YouTube.
Well, Facebook is quickly unifying the messaging backend between its applications to make them impossible to unstick.
They're doing that.
It's almost like Menlo Park has some intelligent people inside of it. But I mean, this is an Amazon issue. Sorry, Harry.
I was going to say Facebook says that they would have, if Instagram and WhatsApp were separate companies, they would have less resources to fight all the bad stuff.
Oh,
there's an economy of scale because they're part of this larger company.
Yeah,
makes me so mad. If we can't be huge, China's going to win.
By the way,
that's the argument that
that is Google's excuse for saying we really need to be able to do business with Huawei, because if we cut them loose, it's bad for everybody.
I mean, I'm skeptical about government being involved, and in fact, our current federal administration is talking about looking into the social platforms for being unfair to conservatives.
Right.
And so it's almost the opposite of some of the concerns other people have.
It's the weirdest complaint. Nothing is bigger on Facebook than people of Leo's age sharing Fox News content. It's like the biggest thing on Facebook. And I tried that very delicately.
I'm sorry. I try not to do it, but they're so compelling, and I can't resist.
Those Barack Obama memes.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook runs on Fox News. It's super popular stuff. It's not biased against conservatives.
Well,
do you think, Leo, the government should step in and say no more recommendation engine?
Well, that would be an interesting thing you could do without breaking them up. There seems to be a middle ground between breaking them up and ignoring them. That maybe there are some things you could do. I think it's a challenge to figure out what those are, but I think with some energy and some effort, the more intelligent people than I could probably figure out things like maybe, no more recommendation engine.
Doesn't it get to the point where it's like yelling fire in a crowded theater? I mean, that it isn't, that it's,
they're not
inciting violence. I mean, I'm not saying like that it's protected by free speech.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It is
saying,
dangerous. But this is the real issue: is who decides what's
right. Exactly.
Who decides what's dangerous? Is it the chicken liberators? Is that dangerous?
Or it's the proponents of the poultry carceral state.
Yes.
I was holding that phrase.
Because I have other issues with the recommendation engine, and that's just the amount of time. I mean, like I check my...
it's bad for humans and other living things.
Right, exactly.
In general.
Even if you're just constantly watching educational videos that are all accurate and they're from NASA or...
Even if it were good recommendations, it would be bad.
If you're going to be doing it for 12 hours, then it's not healthy.
Yeah. I mean, Netflix autoplay isn't inherently evil. It's not dragging me down into the depths of chicken carcerators, but it's annoying as hell, and it gets me to watch a hell of a lot more TV than I want to.
What if the solution is what we just talked about earlier? The idea that you can be a publisher or a platform, but if you're going to have...
Pick one.
Plastisher, not allowed.
The law exists to do this. To be honest, we don't have to even write a new law to do that. But just have to enforce it.
But that's exactly the problem. Despite all of the things that we've said, which I think most of which are pretty true, who are we going to trust to go into these companies with enough intelligence to properly regulate them? We have a government, currently an administration, as Harry pointed out, of schmucks. I wouldn't trust them to change my tires.
I didn't use that word.
I was paraphrasing. But I'll call them schmucks.
I don't think I've ever heard Harry say schmuck.
That word.
I might have used an even worse word, but I didn't use that particular word.
I forgot the exact quote halfway through my sentence and had to land the plane. So, it's filled in.
Yeah, honestly, we may be worried about a minor thing compared to what could happen in the next couple of years. So, for instance, there seems to be zero will in the Senate to do anything about Russian election interference, and that's already started. It's already started, and no big deal.
Oh, Mitch McConnell's not worried.
No big deal.
I think we're in dangerous waters,
I think we're in very dangerous waters. So maybe worrying about whether Google should get rid of its recommendation engine is worrying about something not so important.
I think it's pretty important. If you read that New York Times, that Kevin Roos article, if it is really a breeding ground for somebody to...
Flat earthers. Seriously.
Anti-vaxxers.
Yeah.
I like using flat earthers because it's apolitical, but it's a really good example. On the face of it, believing the earth is flat is nuts. And it really had pretty much died out until YouTube. Mm-hmm. And suddenly, people believe the earth is flat again because of YouTube.
Magellan figured it out by looking at the horizon. So go outside.
Although I got a very snitty email. Did you see that? Because I had said, I was talking on Twig about this, and I said, well, you get in an airplane, you can see the curvature of the Earth. Excuse me, Leo, but Neil deGrasse Tyson has pointed out that in a commercial flight of 36,000 feet or less, you cannot, in fact, see the curvature of the Earth. So I apologize. It looked curved to me.
I don't know if that was really an apology.
Excuse me, but I believe you're wrong. And anyway, it's the horizon, not the curvizon, says Eric Duckman in our chat room. Was that your email, Eric? I apologize.
For mocking you repeatedly on the show.
Am I wrong, but does it not go curve when you're up there? I thought it did, but I might be wrong. Maybe it's the window. It's a distortion. Could be. I don't know.
Anyways, the world round.
Is the world round? I think we're pretty sure it is. Unless you believe that every astronaut, every satellite, every picture you've seen of the big blue marble is fake. But that's the problem, is that if you watch enough YouTube videos, you can believe anything is fake.
It's actually a bumpy spheroid.
I think it's an ovoid, isn't it? I don't know. It's got a name for it, whatever shape it is.
Yes, but it's not flat.
It's not flat.
It's not a disc.
No, we're pretty sure it's not flat. It's bulged.
It's not held up by elephants.
It's bulged. It's ovoid.
There you go.
It's an oblate spheroid, as a matter of fact.
An oblate spheroid.
I believe so.
That's
what Gray Raven says, and I'm going with Gray Raven. That does sound right. That rings a bell, oblate spheroid. Plus, it's fun to say. Somehow, this guy has his record of the number of political videos he watched.
You can download it from
we all
YouTube.
have that if we want to
download your YouTube history.
How does he know that? What magic is it? What witchcraft is this?
I mean, I'm just going to put on my mom hat for a second, but like every parent who's worried about their kid watching porn, like that's not what you should be worried about.
No.
Really?
There's other kinds of pornography.
It's much bigger and because I think it's like kids alone. Young teenagers, 20-year-olds alone watching this stuff with no one to talk to about it. And I think it's really serious. So look at your kids' YouTube.
Good job on Kevin Roos, and it'd be worth reading. Actually, go on the web, because the web, they've done, as usual with the Times, they've done a good job of production of this.
Also, Kevin Roos in general is a fantastic journalist.
He's a great reporter.
He's really good.
Yeah, big shout out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is one of those long pieces he's probably spent months working on. So,
yeah, he goes deep.
Yep.
And I always learn something reading his stuff.
Yep. He quotes Guillaume Chazlot, a former YouTube engineer who's since become a critic of the company's recommendation system. He said this year that YouTube's algorithms are designed to increase the time people spend online because it leads to more ads. It's that simple. But we also know it leads to other things. And it seems frankly the height of irresponsibility for Google to say, we can fix this. We need those ads. We can fix this.
And it's not just far right either. There's far left.
Oh,
there's all
like
kinds
I said,
of,
Chicken Liberation Front.
It's just untruth.
The CLF.
The CLF.
It's coming for your free range eggs.
Well, I'm a part of that, but
how hippie are you, man?
I just don't eat chicken.
Oh, you don't have to eat them. They're just laying eggs. You eat eggs?
Yeah, I do.
Did you see a Chicken Liberation person rush the stage when Jeff Bezos was speaking at the Amazon conference a few days ago?
No, I missed that. What were they hoping for?
I'm not sure, and I'm not sure whether
Does Amazon sell chickens?
Well, they own Whole Foods, so.
Oh, of course they do. Yeah.
I mean, to be clear, we could treat poultry a lot better in the American farming world.
I completely agree.
Also, I used to collect eggs from chickens in a coop, and chickens are real dumb.
So and nasty beasts.
They're not great. So there's a middle ground to be found here.
They deserve to be eaten.
Yes, but treated nicely before I eat them.
Yeah.
Like I was in 4-H. I know cows. Cows are dumb, no guilt, but they should be treated fairly while they're alive.
Yeah. We get our eggs from our neighbor. The chickens are wandering around. They're enjoying life. They're having sexual intercourse constantly. It's okay.
Details, Leo. You always bring the details. You should get back into the writing game.
Did you see? All right, I'm going to take a break. I'm embarrassed now. I'm blushing. And then I'm going to talk about the big move Amazon made on Friday that's going to change everything. And it has nothing to do with chickens or sexual intercourse. Our show... They can edit that out, right? Our show today...
right before the ad, too.
Right before the ad. Let's just pause for a moment to cleanse our thoughts. Forget what Leo just said. I wish we had a twit recommendation engine that would just recommend we should do that, the next twit. Mm-hmm. Where'd you get that nice picture?
Lisa tweeted it.
Oh.
Who's the most controversial guest that comes on the show? That would be the equivalent. It's not me.
Oh.
Not
The
even
equivalent of a
far-right
a
chicken
Joe
liberation
Rogan
video.
chicken liberation type.
It's me.
It's you?
Yeah, yeah.
No, you're like the most
Oh my
reasonable,
God.
nice,
Oh my
educated
God.
person on the entire
You
Twitter
have
network.
no idea. You should watch iOS Today.
It's probably Jason Calacanis.
Yeah, he's pretty controversial.
Yeah.
We love Jason, though. I'm always trying to get him on. He's too busy these days. Dvorak has his moments.
I don't know if I've ever been on with Dvorak, but I used to watch Cranky Geeks back in the Dignation days. Yeah.
He hasn't been on since Christmas. We keep trying to entice him, but no luck. Protestor interrupts Jeff Bezos to plea for abused chickens. Here's the story. This will be a little, we'll call this the palate cleanser, a little amuse-bouche.
My colleague Mark Sullivan was in the room for that.
Here's Jeff being interrupted. Go ahead, you can turn on my audio.
If you want to be an entrepreneur, the most important thing is to be customer obsessed. So don't satisfy your customers. Figure out how to absolutely delight them. That is the number one thing.
He's been saying that for a long time.
Passion, you have got to have
Don't
some
pay the
passion
warehouse
for
workers more
the
than $10 an
arena
hour.
that you're going to develop and work in.
Jeff Bezos, he really underlined that.
Wait a minute, where's the abused chicken? Now, I feel like the Washington Examiner link baited me here.
Well, the Washington Examiner is not the paragon of journalistic integrity.
Where's the guy, Priya Sawhney of Direct Action Everywhere, walked on stage to plead. Oh, here he is. With
I
the
thought
Amazon.
It was the chicken that walked on stage.
No, CEO about the welfare of chickens in factory farms. The guy walks on. It would be funny if you were wearing a chicken suit. Here you go. Here's the play my audio again.
Can actually move the needle.
I've been inside of Amazon's chicken farms where animals are criminally abused. And now she's being dragged off. And then Jeff's just sitting there. I didn't know Amazon had chicken farms.
Whole Foods.
There's Amazon Fresh. There's Whole Foods.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's Amazon Go stores with chicken sandwiches.
I mean, Amazon now even sells like Amazon Basics men's shorts. Like I'm pretty sure they sell everything now.
You do not want to be the richest man in the world because what happens is people come to you and say, you could fix this. Everything.
I'm not so sure whether Amazon owns chicken farms, though.
Right.
If I was the richest man in the world, no one would ever talk to me. I would never let them get
You'd
within
have an
100.
island.
Yes, exactly. I would live on the island. I'd fly my friends in.
Yeah.
I would live in a hot tub. I'd never get out. And it would be the best life of all time.
Yeah.
A little wrinkly.
I think, you know what, Priya, I'm glad you did that. It's good. Let's raise the issue. Let's talk about the plight of chickens. One thing you don't want to do is go to the post office. Not that they're not wonderful. I like the post office. I like to hang out there and talk to my postal carrier. But if you're trying to mail something, if you're trying to get postage, the best way to do it is stay right at your desk. Sit at your desk and use Stamps.com. No more driving to the post office, parking, lugging your mail and packages in. No, you can do everything you do at the post office right here at your desk with Stamps.com, one of the most popular time-saving tools for every small business. We have an account. We use it. We've been using it for years. Stamps.com eliminates trips to the post office, saves you money. You get deals from Stamps that you can't get at the post office. And everything. You can print postage. You get a lovely USB scale, so you always have exactly the right postage. Stamps will even suggest the right postage to save you money. They'll say, this is a book media mail. You could save some money. If you are an Amazon or eBay or Etsy seller, you can make your mailing look so much more professional. You can print right on envelopes with your logo, your return address automatically. If you're mailing a package, you don't have to lick and paste a bunch of stamps on, maybe put a few extra on because you don't want it to be postage. No, it'll do it all and it looks professional. It looks beautiful. Whether you're a small office sending invoices, an online shipper selling products, or even a warehouse sending thousands of packages a day, Stamps.com can handle it all. Simply use your computer, your printer, no special ink, no special hardware to print official U.S. postage 24/7. And once your mail's ready, you just hand it to the carrier. Drop it in a mailbox. That's it. It's done. With Stamps.com, get this, you get 5 cents off every first-class stamp and up to 40% off priority mail. Just the other day, when they raised the rates, I said, oh no, I have a bunch of stamps that I can't use anymore. I went in the office, we printed out the little, 2-cent stamps I needed, Stamps.com. It's a no-brainer. Saves you time, saves you money. It's no wonder 700,000 small businesses already use Stamps.com. You should use Stamps.com. And right now I have an amazing offer. A 4-week trial, free postage, a digital scale. All you do is you go to Stamps.com. See the microphone in the upper right-hand corner? See that nice lady? She's trying to give you the offer. No. Don't click her. Click the microphone. And then enter twit. Go. It doesn't matter how you kept. See, the nice lady's replaced by this old guy who was going to give you an amazing deal. Stamps.com. Enter the offer code TWIT to get that credible offer. Stamps.com. Thank you, Stamps, by the way. They've been a sponsor of this show for more than a decade, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to them. So on Friday, Amazon said, we're not, actually it was Federal Express said, we're not doing business with Amazon anymore. That's it. It's over. Battle lines are being drawn now. I read Brad Stone's great book, The Everything Store, and he talked about the battle Amazon fought with the carriers, UPS and FedEx, to keep the prices low. And Amazon has a lot of clout. They said, we won't do business. But all this time, with this deal in place, they've been buying or leasing jets. They've been building facilities. In fact, maybe it's just Petaluma, but when you get packages delivered to you, is it from an Amazon Prime truck or a FedEx truck?
Much of the time it's Amazon.
Yeah.
For the last mile, at least.
Yeah. More and more, Amazon's doing their own deliveries, even drone deliveries. So FedEx, I think, finally said, you know what? We're going to side with the other guys. We're getting plenty of business from Walmart, and that's the future. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch the battle of the behemoths here over
I thought they were stopping the air contracts, but not the last mile deliveries.
Maybe I misread it. I thought they said no more business with Amazon.
Now I think your thing makes more sense than mine. But I don't think the entire relationship is kaput. I think they're getting rid of a chunk of it, which is still very important and key to how they operate.
Yeah,
and it could be express deliveries.
For express deliveries.
They're still doing international stuff.
International, okay. I mean, it could also be another one of those negotiation things where they'll come back and say, okay, we made a deal. Amazon obviously has plenty of deliveries to go around. Here's their new drone. It's the Prime Air delivery drone. It can fly vertically like a helicopter. I thought all drones could. And in a new aerodynamic airplane mode. There it goes. This is so you don't think this is this VTOL device.
We all fell for this like 4 years ago.
Yeah, 60 Minutes, remember?
Yeah, and they were like, this is coming out now. It's already going to be in the market. I've never seen one. And now they're going to get another press cycle because people have forgotten what they had for lunch last week, and we're going to go through it all over again, and I'm still not going to see one in the air. There's regulatory problems. There's pathing problems.
Do you really want drones all over the place?
Eventually.
Pretty soon you're going to look up, all you're going to see is Elon Musk's Starlink satellites and drones, and you won't see the sun.
But every 19-year-old boy will be very happy by that. That's their current dream for the future.
The new drone uses a combination of thermal cameras, depth cameras, and sonar to detect hazards. With the help of machine learning models, onboard computers can automatically identify obstacles and navigate around them. Here's the quote from Amazon's Jeff Wilke. From paragliders, power lines, to the corgi in your backyard, this drone has you safely covered. Unclear if they're delivering the corgi or avoiding the corgi. I'm not sure.
I want to see it. I want to see a one in the world commercial delivery.
So
one of these.
This is a little misleading. If you watch the video I just showed, how big do you think that is?
It's hard to tell.
Let me show you how big it is. Here it is standing next to Jeff Wilke. It's the size of a RoboCop.
So it's carrying the package inside that little
It's
body.
gigantic.
What if Jeff Wilke's very small?
Yeah.
Oh, he could be tiny.
Totally.
Maybe it's a Jeff Wilke action figure.
True. It could actually be only 6 inches across.
I don't think we want a lot of these flying through the air all of a sudden.
But if they're too small, they can't carry much, and it seems like economies of scale would not work.
I guess they have to be bigger. But this looks like it's a one-package delivery. Do you think they get multiple packages? What do they do? They hover over your house and open the maw and it falls?
Under your corgi.
I hope inside there's like a package of cotton balls wrapped in a bunch of plastic.
There's only a few things they can
inside.
deliver.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Do you think we're going to have like neighborhood, like Amazon drop-off points in the future? Like, honey,
Well,
run
they
out to
already
the
have
pickup
that.
point.
They have that.
They have the Whole Foods.
You perhaps have not heard of
They work with apartment buildings.
Amazon's Scout.
That's the little robot thing.
That's the little robot.
Which actually is being tested, I believe. And it's out there doing deliveries in Snohomish.
It's in Snohomish, exactly. I'm glad you said that.
Snohomish County.
Gesundheit. This is Scout. It's a little, well, what is it? It's an igloo cooler on wheels is what it is. And it doesn't move very fast. It moves fairly slowly, but it does occupy the sidewalk. Fortunately, in most towns in America, USA, nobody's on the sidewalks, so it's okay. Although having to dodge around this little robot all the time would be a little annoying.
It's cute, though, so I don't want to kick it.
Yeah, but people will.
Well, maybe. But, I mean, Postmates is working on this robot as well. They have a X division that's working on robotic technology. This is an idea many people are tinkering with.
Is this so expensive that these companies really just, this is how they want to do it?
I think there's probably margin to be found in deliveries still.
Well, you don't have to have a person. You don't have to pay a person.
Are persons so expensive that anything you can do to get a human out of the supply chain will save you money?
You're going to have to pay for their pesky health insurance and all that.
Amazon doesn't do that. They've solved that with contractors.
And honestly, unless somebody employs people, they're not going to have money to buy Amazon Prime goods. Maybe that's somebody else's problem.
It's the same market for the Apple Pro. Eventually, there'll be 8 people with a lot of money. It's fine. I think this is cool, but I just want to see it happen.
Another sign of the times. Facebook, you cover this kind of stuff. Facebook shareholders meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
68% of investors voted to fire Mark Zuckerberg.
And what was the result of that vote?
Well,
they're still okay with him as CEO, but they're not so crazy about him as chairman.
Oh, they don't want him CEO. They don't want him chairman.
I believe so.
So they don't want him on the board. They just because then the board would run him.
They want him with a little bit less power and somebody else weighing in.
But what percentage of voting stock does he control?
Well, here's the problem. There's, as you know, Class A, which is what all the shareholders have. That's 1 vote per share. And then there's this Class B stock, which has 10 votes per share. And you know who has almost all the Class B stock?
Is it the public?
No, it's Mark Zuckerberg. Oh, 75%, in fact.
And that's why he controls
60% of the voting power at Facebook. So vote all you want, little shareholders. Mark trumps everybody.
CEO, chairman, and controlling shareholder.
Wouldn't you, if you were Mark Zuckerberg, take this a little bit seriously? Like, if that a huge majority of your shareholders, of your, private shareholders, want you out?
If the stock plummets, he has to take that seriously.
It's all about the price. They're not selling their shares. They're voting, but they're not selling their shares. Interesting.
Facebook has had a really tough couple of, year, I want to say, maybe even 2 years now. And I just pulled up their stock price. They peaked at 210, give or take, fell all the way down to 125, and now they're back up to the 180s. So they've recovered enough. There's no pressure on him.
They're doing all right. Yeah.
I mean, there's a big move in Silicon Valley to have more founder-friendly terms from investors, to give founders more control longer into the life of companies. Snap has done this.
Facebook a lot of it because of Facebook, right? Because
I think they set
this was the model. Mark was the benevolent dictator for life, and it's worked out very well for Facebook. Well, it had until recently.
I mean, it's worked out well for Facebook even still. Their revenue's growing, their market footprint's increasing, and their profits are going up.
So what do you think about them doing a cryptocurrency?
I mean, I'm trying to find a way to be nice about this.
That's going to be launched in 9 days.
I mean, people, why not just have a digital currency without a blockchain? Blockchains are slow.
Yeah.
It's going to be centralized anyway, so it's not going to have the better parts of blockchain that are decentralizations. Facebook's not going to give anyone else control of their digital currency. So to me, it's a marketing stunt attached to an idea that I don't want, that they're going to spread across a platform that people are trying to not use.
We don't know what it'll be called. Libra is the code name. It will be a stable coin. So that means the price, you're the financial whiz here.
It's pegged.
It's pegged. It doesn't, as Bitcoin, which is the wild fluctuations are one of the many things that hurt Bitcoin. It won't have those wild fluctuations.
No. For example, Tether is a stable coin that's pegged to the US dollar. 1 Tether is equivalent to 1 USD.
But that eliminates the investors, but it eliminates the speculators as well, right? And I guess that's better not to have speculation.
So how do you drive uptake then? You have to have it useful on the Facebook platform in a way that other currencies wouldn't be. Perhaps it's good for cross-border transfers of money, but I don't really currently see the need for it. And I don't want to be, I've been kind of mean on the show, so I'm trying to find something nice to say.
You'll be able to use it, I guess, within Facebook. In the Facebook ecosystem, you could transfer it among Facebook properties. The article on TechCrunch says Facebook's working with merchants to accept the token as payment. We'll see how that works.
In the era of Venmo, I feel like we've already kind of solved the money transfer problem intra-country. So if it's not inter-country, I don't particularly care.
According to the information, they're going to roll out, I don't know what this means, physical devices for ATMs so that you could bring your money to and buy Facebook coin.
Well, let's come up with a name with them. Let's call them like Zuckbucks.
Zuckbucks. I like it.
How many Zuckbucks are you going to buy?
No Zuckbucks.
Yep. I'm not on Facebook anymore.
Yeah.
So that's 0. You?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't.
I'm on Facebook, but I don't really spend money there.
You know what I would buy? An Axe body wash with the Xbox logo on it. Mm-hmm. Now, as a Apex Legend player, you're probably not in the market for this. You know, this announcement, produced in partnership with the makers of Axe body spray, this announcement of the Xbox Lynx body wash and deodorant really kind of makes me think that they're saying we stink. Gamers stink. Is that what they're saying?
Look, gamers are not famous for hygiene.
That's what they're saying.
It's gotten better in the era of esports and like cameras. But I do think that they're going to sell more of those bottles of Xbox Axe than we would think reasonable. And if it leads to cleaner children putting my mom hat on, what's wrong with that?
What's wrong? What's wrong with cleaner children?
Do silly things.
Yeah.
There is such thing as too much Axe body spray, though.
Oh yeah.
Famously so.
Yeah. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
But body wash is relatively, you shower it off, so you can't really get too stinky.
Right. Yeah.
Well, oh yeah. You've not smelled Axe apparently.
No, I smelled the spray, but if it's a body wash.
Well, give me a sniff.
I don't even know how to interpret that, but no way that I could is good. That's why I put you between us, so I couldn't be harassed on the show.
All right, it's clearly time for us all to go home. I think I've done all. Have I done everything I needed to do, Karsten? I have.
You've done everything except for Morrone Make.
Oh, you're absolutely right. A very sad post from Dale Doherty, who is the founder of Make Magazine and the Maker Faire. He announced that, in fact, it is over for Make and the Maker Fairs, which is a surprise. The ticket sales apparently for Maker Faire that was upcoming were right on the mark. But Maker Faire laid off all its staff and has halted operations. There will not be another Maker Faire. Dale, who is a great guy, we've interviewed many times on our shows, says he's hoping to find, he said the business model wasn't good, but he's hoping to find somebody who can help him at least keep the magazine printing. Because I think a lot of people got a lot out of Make Magazine.
People loved it.
People bought tickets.
It was very dependent on sponsorships. So kind of the same issue as other forms of media, that people still loved it. But you need sponsors and advertisers to put up the money.
And Microsoft and Autodesk did not sponsor this year's Maker Faire, and that was, I think, probably the proximate cause. But you can't blame Microsoft and Autodesk. I think this was man, if they just called me, I would have given them whatever they needed.
Palmer Luckey also says he'll give them whatever.
Palmer's got some money, the creator of Oculus Rift. He says, I love Maker Faire. I've been a Make reader literally since the first issue. Some friends and I would love to save Maker Media. So maybe an angel will come. And there is, I think, maybe Doherty says he's aware of Lucky's interest and a GoFundMe page that was started. So maybe it's not over. It would be a really great thing to bring this, keep this alive. Because as people pointed out, the subscriptions were good. They had 25,000 paid subscribers, 1 million YouTube subscribers. The Maker Faire event last week met its ticket sales target. 1.45 million people attended Maker Fairs in 2016. It's by every measurement, it sounds like a success. But as you point out, they don't make money on tickets alone. They've got to have sponsorships. All right, now we do like to put obituaries at the end of the show. Is anybody else dead?
Nope.
I mean, pulse check, but I think we're good.
Everybody?
A chicken was probably just killed.
Oh my God, the chickens. Think of the chickens. That's Megan Morrone. She will be back Tuesday for iOS Today.
Yes. Even before that, tomorrow I am interviewing Julian Guthrie, who wrote Alpha Girls. She profiled 4 venture capitalists, some of the early women who pioneered
Nice.
And
that'll be for an upcoming triangulation.
But you can watch live. That'll be at 3 p.m. So
3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m.
I'm
Eastern.
very excited.
On
and
Monday.
Yeah,
and on Friday, I interviewed Trey Ratcliffe about his book, Under the Influence, all about the baleful influence of influencers on Instagram. And he was great. Did that triangulation? That's not coming out yet.
No, that will air the first week in July, I believe.
Next month. Look for that. Alex Wilhelm will be married in 2 weeks.
Yes, I will not be here.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
I'm really excited.
I have some advice for you.
Please.
19 years.
Yeah. So when you were, we were talking earlier, and then Liza called, and I said, you can take that. And he answered the phone and said, hello, gorgeous.
Good
Just
move.
Keep doing that.
Keep doing
forever.
that.
That's all you need to do.
Keep doing that.
It was so sweet.
They are such a cute couple. And the fact that they live in my childhood home is not in any way.
That's still my favorite coincidence I've ever been a part of.
Like the actual building?
No, it's the same house.
So Liza was out here. We were getting ready for a new Screensavers, and we're talking about, she says, I live in Providence. I said, I grew up in Providence. That's so cool. She said, where'd you grow up? I said, I named the street. I won't say it. I don't want you to be doxxed.
Thank you.
And she said, oh, really? Really? On that street? What number? And I told her the number. She said, that's where I live.
Yeah.
Her parents had, I guess, bought the house.
Yeah.
And now she's living there as she goes to med school. She's going to...
No, now she's a resident.
I'm sorry. She's been through med school. Yes. She's now a resident. At where?
Med school at Tulane.
Oh, nice. And resident at Providence Hospital? Or?
It's a collection of Brown and a couple of local hospitals. Nice. The medical world's very confusing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in fact, I think you have a video that I'm going to see after the show.
I was just about to tell people they can't see the public.
We don't
video.
Want to show that in public. But of the Amazon drone landing on your corgi in the backyard I grew up in.
It's a Havanese, but close, yes. It doesn't end well for Scout or Nola.
It's great to have you. Please come back. I love having you on at Alex on the Twitter. And, of course, Crunchbase News, where he is a pretty high-ranking mucky muck and editor-in-chief.
Of a team of 8, but yes.
Well, 8 people. That's a lot. And the great technologizer himself, Harry McCracken, who is also an editor, a technology editor at Fast Company. Anything you want to plug? What? You can't tell us your upcoming.
Right, I have some good stuff coming up in the next week or two, so keep clicking on Fast Company and you'll see it eventually.
I forgot the byline. I just read of yours. It was a great story. You do. I like the long form stuff. It's really fun. And Harry has a real love, as I do, for the history of technology. So those history pieces are always of great interest. I think that was what I was reading, but I've forgot. It's gone out of my head. I'm going to go home and watch the last Game of Thrones again. So, no, I'm not. I have other plans. And oh man, I've just almost got myself in big trouble. But I'm not going to say what I was going to say. But you know what I was going to say, and you know what I was going to say. But I'll tell you what I'm going to say. We do this show every Sunday afternoon, right after the radio show, 2:30 Pacific, 5:30 Eastern. You know what I was going to say, 21:30 UTC. You can come and be in studio. We had a great studio audience. Thank you for being here. All you have to do is email tickets at twit.tv. We'll put a chair out for you. I want to thank them by name because James from Eugene, nice to have you, and John and Lauren from Orlando. Appreciate you coming in. If you want to be here, again, email tickets at twit.tv. We'll put a chair out for you. You can also watch the stream or listen. We have a live stream, a variety of them actually, at twit.tv/live. And if you want to watch or listen at your convenience, download a copy. The show is available at the website, as with all our shows, twit.tv. But, the best thing to do would be to subscribe. We're on YouTube, too. I don't think we show up in the recommendation engine. So.
Not anymore.
No, definitely not.
Just subscribe. That way you'll get it automatically, and you'll have a twit to listen to in your Monday morning commute every week. Thank you, everybody. As user 1338 said in our chat room, happy Pride. We'll see you next week. Another twit is in the can. Bye-bye.